Chapter 944 Headmaster of Maze Roth. The following chapter took place before Michael learned about Nightmare's death and appeared at Nagaland. As Michael emerged from the sea realm with Harry in tow, he felt a sense of relief wash over him. He knew that Layla, Harry's mother, would be anxiously awaiting their arrival on the floating mountain. However, Michael was also aware that he had the grim task of informing Layla that her own sister, Edith, had been the one responsible for Harry's abduction. He had no regrets about taking Edith's life. In fact, he only wished he had done so earlier. Michael knew that Layla had loved Edith deeply, even if she had not always shown it, and he was prepared for the potential backlash from both Layla and Harry. Nevertheless, Michael had acted in accordance with what he believed was right and just, and that was all that mattered to him. Michael flew through the starry night sky, holding Harry tightly in his arms, feeling the weight of the child's peaceful slumber against his chest. Michael couldn't help but marvel at how much Harry had grown since he last saw him through the surveillance mirror. The once helpless baby was now a toddler with a full head of messy hair and a chubby yet remarkably resilient body. Michael couldn't help but feel a sense of protectiveness towards the child and a desire to ensure that he could grow up in a world free of violence and chaos. He down at Harry and couldn't help but feel a tinge of guilt. He knew that his actions had caused pain and suffering for those he cared about, including Layla and the innocent child in his arms. But as Michael felt Harry's soft skin and heard his gentle breathing, he also knew that he had made the right choice in killing Edith. No one should have the power to use innocent lives as pawns in a game of power, and Michael was willing to bear the burden of that responsibility. While he soared above the tranquil ocean, Michael wondered what kind of future awaited Harry. Would he grow up to be a hero like his mother, or would he be forever haunted by the darkness that surrounded him? Regardless, Michael was determined to do everything in his power to ensure that Harry had a chance to live a long and fulfilling life. The fate of the world may hang in the balance, but for now, all that mattered was the peaceful slumber of a child in his arms. Michael's thoughts drifted to Harry's future, and it weighed heavily on his mind, causing a dull ache to throb in his temples. Before he had left for the sea realm, Michael had offered to take Layla and Harry with him to the floating mountain, where they would be safe from the dangers of the outside world. But Layla had rejected the offer, adamantly refusing to expose her son to Michael's dark army or to be involved in his war against the world. Michael couldn't blame her for her decision, but he couldn't shake off the feeling that Harry's future was uncertain and that the boy deserved a chance at a peaceful life. Despite Michael's offer to protect Layla and Harry from the dangers of his dark army, Layla had made it clear that she wanted nothing to do with him or his war. Michael couldn't shake off the worry for Harry's future and the nagging feeling that Layla had a plan in place. He tried suggesting sending them to a separate pocket dimension, but Layla refused. As Michael was deep in thought about their safety, a strong gust of wind brushed past him, causing him to stop in his tracks. A feeling of unease crept up on Michael as he sensed a powerful figure suddenly appears behind him. When Michael turned around, he was met with the sight of a towering figure hovering in the air before him. The man appeared to be the embodiment of peace and wisdom, radiating a calming aura that put Michael at ease. He had long, flowing white hair and a matching beard that fluttered gently in the wind while his eyes twinkled with a sense of knowing. He wore long, flowing purple robes that seemed to billow around him as he moved, and half-moon-shaped glasses perched on the bridge of his nose, giving him an air of intellect and sophistication. "Who you might be?" Michael asked with an air of calmness. The old man took a moment to respond, his gaze slowly scanning over Michael from head to toe. The man exuded an aura of peaceful wisdom, as if he held knowledge of all things in the world. Michael attempted to sense the old man's power, but to his surprise, he found himself unable to do so. It was as if a powerful magic had been placed around the old man to prevent Michael from gauging his strength. The old man's voice was deep and resonant, filled with a sense of wisdom and authority that commanded Michael's attention. The man's eyes sparkled with intelligence behind his half-moon glasses, making it clear that he was not a person to be underestimated. "Such a loss that you chose not to return to Azeroth, Ghost," the old man repeated, his voice tinged with a hint of regret. "Professor Lane speaks of you often, and that is saying something, considering his usual reluctance to discuss former students." The old man's smile was warm, but there was a hint of something else in his expression that Michael couldn't quite identify. Michael fixed his gaze on the old man before him, his eyes scrutinizing him as he asked, "You didn't answer my question." His tone was calm, but there was an underlying hint of curiosity and suspicion as he tried to discern the identity of the stranger who had appeared before him. "The headmaster of Maze Roth, Wulfric Wells III, replied the old man in a calm and collected voice. As Wulfric revealed his identity, Michael's eyes widened in shock and disbelief. The headmaster of Maze Roth, one of the most renowned academies of magic, was standing before him. Michael had heard about Wulfric's reputation as an accomplished wizard, but he never expected to meet him in person. Despite his surprise, Michael couldn't help but wonder why Wulfric had come all the way to him. It was clear that the headmaster was not here to fight, but there had to be a reason for his unexpected appearance. Michael's mind raced as he tried to come up with possible explanations for the headmaster's visit. While Michael was trying to decipher why the headmaster of Maze Roth had appeared before him, he suddenly sensed a new presence. He turned his gaze and saw Layla, Harry's mother, standing beside Wulfric. Michael was taken aback by her sudden appearance, but he maintained his composure and assessed her expression for any signs of hostility or resentment towards him. Layla's sudden appearance took Michael aback, but he was even more taken aback when he saw the overwhelming joy on her face at the sight of Harry safe and sound in his arms. She cried tears of relief and delight as she rushed towards him. Layla's eyes, which were always cold and calculated, were now filled with warmth and love as she took Harry from Michael's arms and held him tightly. She dashed towards Michael and took Harry into her arms, holding him tightly against her chest. The warmth of Harry's body made her feel alive again, as if a part of her had been missing and had just returned to her. She hugged him tightly, grateful for his safe return, and did not want to let him go. She embraced him with a passion that could only be compared to the fierce love of a mother who had lost her child and now had him back in her arms. In that moment, Layla felt like she was coming back to life. "What happened to him?" Layla asked, her voice laced with concern as she saw her son sleeping in Michael's arms. She immediately feared that something might have happened to him in the sea realm. "He's fine, just sleeping," Michael reassured her. He could sense the love and worry in Layla's voice, and he knew that Harry meant everything to her. "It's best to let him rest for now. He's been through a lot." Layla nodded, relieved to know that Harry was safe and sound. She held him close and whispered soothing words, feeling grateful that Michael had saved her son. As Layla was showering Harry with kisses and hugs, Michael shifted his attention to Wulfric. He had knocked out Layla and left her safely in his castle, so he was puzzled as to how Wulfric had managed to find her. But when Michael examined the energy fluctuations and power radiation surrounding Wulfric, he realized that the headmaster had somehow freed Layla from his castle. After a moment of silence, Michael turned his gaze towards Wulfric Wells and spoke up, breaking the tension. "Why are you here, headmaster?" he inquired, his voice firm and steady. Despite his surprise at Wulfric's sudden appearance, Michael maintained his composure and remained wary of the headmaster's motives. He knew that Wulfric would not have come to him without a good reason, and Michael's instincts told him that it was something important. "We are going to Maze Roth," Layla spoke up, interrupting the silence between Michael and Wulfric. Michael couldn't help but feel a twinge of concern in his heart upon hearing her decision. While he had previously considered Maze Roth as a safe haven for Layla and Harry, he knew all too well that Maze Roth was under the control of Skyhall, his sworn enemies. He couldn't bear the thought of Harry being used as a pawn against him in the future, as had happened with Noah. However, as Michael looked into Layla's eyes, he saw a steely determination that he knew he would not be able to sway. Despite his reservations about Maze Roth, he could see that Layla had made up her mind and would not be dissuaded easily. It was clear to Michael that Layla was fiercely protective of her son and was willing to do whatever it took to keep him safe, even if it meant going against Michael's wishes. He knew it would be a difficult battle to try and convince her otherwise. Wulfric could see the worry in Michael's eyes, and he spoke in a calm and reassuring tone. "You can trust me, Michael. Maze Roth is not under Skyhall's control," Wulfric said, sensing Michael's concerns about Harry's safety. Michael still had doubts about sending Harry to Maze Roth. He knew Skyhall had a firm grip on many realms, including Maze Roth, and he feared that they might use Harry as a weapon against him in the future. "Who says they don't control it, headmaster? They control almost everything, and imagine what they would do to him once they learn he's my blood, Michael countered, expressing his concerns to Wulfric. I made my decision, Ghost. We are going to Maze Roth, where my son will receive the education and safety he deserves, Layla interrupted Michael before he could say a word. Michael was about to argue, but Layla's eyes were determined and unwavering. You didn't listen to me when you rushed into absorbing the first energy. You didn't listen to me when I asked you to keep an eye on Harry. Your decisions have put either you or those around you in danger every time. And now, you are willing to risk his life. Michael tried to reason with her, but Layla cut him off once again. Stop, Layla's voice was firm yet gentle. I made my decision, Ghost. You were the one who cut all ties with us. I asked you to leave everything behind and come with us, but you refused. You didn't want any part in our lives. I am sorry we dragged you into this, but it won't happen again once we reach Maze Roth. I trust Headmaster Wells, and this is my final decision, Layla said, her tone leaving no room for argument. Michael tried to reason with Layla, arguing that Maze Roth was not as safe as she thought and that Harry's safety could not be guaranteed. He reminded her of the dangers they faced in the past and the fact that their enemies would stop at nothing to get to him. But Layla remained steadfast in her decision, and her trust in Wulfric was unshakable. Michael's frustration grew as he realized he could not change her mind, and he knew that arguing further would only cause more tension between them. Eventually, Michael relented, knowing that Layla's decision was final. He silently hoped that he would not regret letting Harry go to Maze Roth and that he would find a way to keep him safe from afar. Layla let out a deep sigh, her voice laced with regret and sadness as she spoke. It seems like the darkness has truly changed you, Ghost. Even now, you are reluctant to let us go to Maze Roth as if you value your own safety above our lives. Michael could feel her words piercing through him, but he could not deny that there was a grain of truth to them. Michael knew there was no point in arguing with Layla, so he approached Harry and gently placed his hand on the sleeping child. He bent over and placed a soft kiss on Harry's forehead, whispering, "Goodbye, Harry. I wish things were really different." He had hoped that his reluctance to let Harry go to Maze Roth would have made Layla reconsider her decision, but it seemed that she had made up her mind. Despite the weight of the truth about Edith's death, Michael remained silent as he bid farewell to Harry and Layla. He knew that revealing the truth would only cause more pain and heartache. Besides, Layla didn't ask any questions about Harry's abduction, showing that all she cared about was her son's safe return. I will hold you accountable, Headmaster. If the Sky Hall dares to play any games with them, I will show you why they call me the Dark Lord, Michael said with a deep, commanding voice. The sky darkened as his words echoed across the ocean, and bolts of lightning illuminated his face, highlighting the power emanating from him. The full moon blackened as if in deference to his might, and the wind picked up, blowing fiercely around him. Chapter 945. The dead of the previous Dark Lord. The sound of breaking glass echoed across the dark sky as Michael's meteorite spell cleared out the horde of Hell Walkers. As Gaia stood there in awe, she noticed that the castle was suddenly much closer than before. Michael quickly grabbed her by the waist, and with a swift movement, they both leaped into the air. The wind rushed past them as they soared towards the castle gates. As they approached the gates, Michael's eyes were fixed on the target, calculating their landing with precision. He angled his body and adjusted his speed, and just as they reached the ground, he landed with a light thud right before the castle gates. When Michael landed before the castle, Gaia's eyes widened in shock and horror at the sight before her. The castle of the ruler of Hell was a massive, foreboding structure with black stone walls that reached up toward the dark, stormy sky. The gates were made of iron and adorned with twisted demonic faces, and the courtyard was filled with strange, otherworldly creatures. The air was thick with the stench of sulfur and brimstone, and the sound of screams echoed from within the castle's walls. The atmosphere was oppressive, almost suffocating, and Gaia felt like she was being swallowed up by darkness. The castle was surrounded by jagged peaks and a moat of boiling lava, adding to the foreboding atmosphere. In the distance, the skies were dark and foreboding, with black clouds swirling and lightning flashing in every direction. There was no sun or moon or natural light to guide one's way. Instead, the only light came from the flickering flames that rose up from the molten lava rivers that ran through the realm. The landscape was barren and desolate, devoid of any signs of life or beauty. The ground was rough and jagged, littered with sharp rocks and broken bones. As Gaia took in her surroundings, she couldn't help but feel a sense of despair and hopelessness wash over her. She could hear the distant sounds of screams and cries of agony, reminding her that she was in a place of eternal suffering. As they made their way towards the castle gates, she could see twisted demonic faces carved into the stone walls and strange, otherworldly creatures lurking in the shadows. The closer they got to the castle gates, the more Gaia felt like the darkness was closing in on her. She could see the twisted faces on the gates leering at her, and the air was thick with the stench of sulfur and brimstone. Gaia couldn't imagine how anyone could survive in a place like this. It was a place of unspeakable darkness and horror, ruled by an entity of unfathomable power and malice. And yet, they had to enter the castle and face the ruler of hell if they were to save Nightmare. As they stepped through the gates and into the castle, Gaia could feel the weight of the darkness pressing down on her. The walls were lined with skulls and bones of all shapes and sizes, arranged in twisted patterns. The floors were slick with blood and littered with the remains of the tortured souls who had met their gruesome fates within these walls. Despite the bone-chilling sight of the castle, Gaia found solace in the fact that she was with Michael, the god of darkness and her fiancé. Being by his side gave her an indescribable sense of comfort, even as they ventured deeper into the heart of hell. As Michael stepped onto the castle grounds, the wind picked up, sending chills down Gaia's spine. Thunder rumbled in the distance, and flashes of lightning illuminated the ominous sky, casting an eerie glow across the barren landscape. As they approached the towering steel doors of the castle, Gaia couldn't help but feel a sense of dread building within her. The doors were adorned with intricate carvings of skulls, bones, and disfigured bodies, all of which looked like they had been twisted and contorted into grotesque forms. The door's surface was cold to the touch, as if it had been forged from the very depths of hell itself. The floor was slick with blood and littered with the remains of what appeared to be tortured souls, and the air was thick with the scent of decay and brimstone. The flickering torches cast an eerie glow on the walls, making it seem as though the castle was alive with malevolent spirits. The walls were made of black stone, and the floors were slick with what appeared to be blood. Gaia could see strange, otherworldly creatures lurking in the shadows, their eyes gleaming with malevolent intent. The air was thick with the stench of sulfur and decay, and the only sounds that could be heard were the faint cries and screams of the damned. The flickering torches cast eerie shadows on the walls, and Gaia could feel the eyes of unseen beings following their every move. Despite the castle's foreboding appearance, Michael continued onward with unshakable resolve. Gaia held on to his arm tightly, taking comfort in his reassuring presence. As they navigated through the labyrinthine hallways, Gaia could feel her heart racing with every step they took. The darkness seemed to swallow them up as they moved deeper into the castle's depths. Gaia could feel the weight of the castle bearing down on her as if it were trying to crush her very soul. The stench of decay grew stronger, and the sounds of suffering grew louder with every passing moment. Gaia could feel her resolve starting to falter as they approached the throne room, where the ruler of hell awaited them. But as she looked up at Michael's unwavering gaze, she felt renewed strength and determination. With Michael by her side, she knew that she could face whatever horrors awaited them in the depths of hell. As they made their way through the castle's corridors, Michael's eyes scanned their surroundings, taking in the macabre decor and the twisted artwork that adorned the walls. Gaia walked beside him, her hand gripping his tightly as she surveyed the gruesome surroundings with disgust. "I can't believe this is real," she muttered, glancing at Michael. "Is this hell?" Michael merely shrugged, his expression unreadable. "That's a good bet," he replied with eerie calmness in his voice. Gaia shook her head, her eyes scanning the twisted tapestries that adorned the walls. "I wonder what awaits us in this castle." "I have a bad feeling about this, Michael." Michael remained calm, his gaze fixed ahead as they made their way through the darkened halls. "Whatever or whoever it is, we will face them and get out of this place alive." "I had seen enough deaths for one day," he replied. As they approached the throne hall, Michael's pace quickened, his eyes fixed ahead. Gaia felt her heart race as they stepped through the doors, revealing the foreboding chamber beyond. "You're not scared at all, are you?" she asked softly, her eyes fixed on the twisted tapestries that adorned the walls. Gaia's voice trembled as she glanced around the twisted and gruesome surroundings. "This place is unnerving. The darkness, the lifeless bodies, and everything else. It's creeping me out," she murmured, her grip tightening around Michael's hand. "I sometimes wish I were the goddess of darkness like you so that I could be as fearless as you." Michael merely smiled, his gaze fixed ahead as they made their way through the twisted throne room. Darkness can be a source of fear for many, but for those who embrace it, it can be a powerful tool. Fear is natural, but it's what we do in the face of that fear that defines us. I choose to use the darkness to my advantage, to harness its power and overcome my fears. In the end, it's not the darkness that we should fear, but our own inability to confront it. Finally, Michael arrived at the door to the throne hall and paused for a moment, taking a deep breath. Since he had begun to embrace the darkness within him fully, fear no longer held any power over him. Without hesitation, he pushed the door open and strode into the throne hall calmly and unwaveringly. The throne hall was a foreboding chamber filled with a pervading sense of darkness and malice. The walls were adorned with grotesque tapestries depicting scenes of torture and suffering, and the air was thick with the stench of sulfur and brimstone. In the center of the room stood a massive throne carved from blackened bones and adorned with the skulls of defeated enemies. The throne was surrounded by flickering torches, casting eerie shadows on the walls and illuminating the ruler of hell who sat upon it, a figure of immense power and malice. Dagon's voice rang out as Michael and Gaia finally strode into the throne hall. "Took you long enough," he said, his tone dripping with malice and impatience. When the words of Dagon echoed through the hall, Gaia caught sight of the ruler of hell. She couldn't help but feel a shiver run down her spine. He was an imposing figure, with jet-black skin, 3 blazing eyes, and a wicked grin that revealed rows of razor-sharp teeth. His 4 muscular arms hung by his side, each adorned with a different weapon, and a set of large wings sprouted from his back, twitching with excitement as he surveyed his guests. Sitting upon his throne, which was carved from blackened bones and adorned with the skulls of defeated enemies, the ruler of hell was the epitome of power and malice. His eyes burned with a fierce flame, reflecting the fires of the underworld, and his face was twisted in a wicked grin that sent shivers down Gaia's spine. Despite his formidable appearance, the ruler of hell remained calm and composed, his eyes fixed upon Michael as he approached. As Michael and Gaia approached, the ruler of hell rose from his throne, towering over them with his massive frame. He surveyed them with a predatory gleam in his eye, his nostrils flaring as he breathed in their scent. Gaia couldn't help but feel a sense of unease as the ruler of hell loomed over them. His presence was overwhelming and menacing. She knew that they were in the presence of a being of great power, and she could only hope that Michael was up to the challenge if things went south. Although Michael felt no fear in his heart, he couldn't help but feel a sense of surprise upon seeing the ruler of hell for the first time. If the devil that Michael had heard about in stories had a physical form, it would be the man who sat on the imposing throne before him. Gaia, who had always been fearless, even cowered behind Michael at the sight of the ruler. She tightly gripped Michael's shoulder as they watched the ruler of hell slowly descend the steps. Each step he took seemed to shake the very foundations of the castle as if the ground beneath them was trembling in fear. As he approached them, Michael noticed that the ruler's eyes seemed to glow with an otherworldly light, and his presence was suffocating. As Michael and Gaia stood before the imposing figure of the ruler of hell, Dagon's deep voice reverberated through the throne hall. "Time does fly, huh?" he said, his tone almost playful. "It feels like only yesterday you stood there at the same place you are right now and proposed an alliance with the ruler of hell." Michael was taken aback, his mind racing as he tried to make sense of Dagon's words. "But 5,000 years have passed," Dagon continued, a hint of amusement in his voice. Michael was stunned. His previous self had reset the universe 5,000 years ago, and he had assumed that everyone had been affected. But Dagon seemed to be an exception. Michael searched for any sign of deceit in the ruler's eyes, but found none. "You're not affected?" Michael asked, his confusion evident in his voice. "We were allies, and you made an exception, Michael." Michael's shock deepened as Dagon spoke his true name, a name that no one in the universe should have known. Michael's eyes widened as he realized that the ruler of hell had some knowledge that he should not possess. Gaia noticed the change in Michael's demeanor and squeezed his hand reassuringly, but Michael remained lost in thought, trying to piece together the puzzle before him. Only Gaia knew his true name, and Michael had gone to great lengths to keep it that way. His mind raced as he tried to figure out how Dagon had learned his name, but he could find no answers unless his previous self revealed his name to Dagon for some reason. I have to give you credit, Michael. 5,000 years ago, you said you'd be here. Dagon spoke with a hint of amusement in his voice, his eyes fixed on Michael. His tone was both mysterious and playful, leaving Michael to wonder what else Dagon knew. Michael couldn't help but feel a sense of unease as he studied the ruler of hell. Despite his confidence, Michael knew that Dagon was not to be underestimated. What else did I say? Michael took a step forward, his eyes fixed on Dagon's face. Dagon's lips curved into a sly smile, his eyes twinkling with amusement. That you will settle your debt to me. Chapter 946. The debt of the previous Dark Lord. Michael's expression turned grim as he heard Dagon mention the debt. He couldn't imagine what kind of deal his past self had made with the ruler of hell, but he knew it must have been something significant. Dagon, on the other hand, seemed amused by Michael's reaction. His eyes glinted with a mischievous light as he spoke, relishing in the god of darkness discomfort. Despite his discomfort, Michael remained calm, trying to assess the situation. He knew that if his past self had revealed his realm name to Dagon, there must have been a reason for it. Dagon's voice rang out across the throne hall, filling the space with a sinister, almost playful tone. Let me sweeten the pot for you, Michael, he said, a wry smile playing across his lips. If you help me, I will give back the soul of your recently departed friend. Michael and Gaia stood frozen, their eyes widening in shock and disbelief. For a moment, Michael couldn't believe what he was hearing. The idea of getting his friend's soul back was something he had never even dared to dream of. But the suddenness of Dagon's offer left him feeling uneasy. Gaia, too, was stunned by Dagon's words. Her heart raced as she stared at the ruler of hell, struggling to comprehend what was happening. The thought of seeing her dear little lizard Nightmare once more filled her with a mix of emotions, joy, hope, and fear. Michael and Gaia were both stunned at Dagon's words. Michael's heart raced with a mixture of hope and disbelief. Could it be possible that Nightmare's soul was trapped in hell all this time? And could they finally have the chance to get it back? Gaia's eyes widened in surprise, and her hand tightened on Michael's shoulder. The thought of Nightmare's soul being trapped in hell was horrifying, and the possibility of getting it back was both exciting and terrifying. They both looked at Dagon, waiting for him to elaborate on his offer. Gaia's heart was pounding as she struggled to comprehend what she had just heard. What did you say? She asked, her voice quavering with fear and hope. The thought of seeing her beloved pet Nightmare again filled her with a fierce longing. Dagon merely smirked, his eyes glinting with amusement. He snapped his fingers, and a ghostly figure of a small baby dragon appeared beside him. Michael felt his breath catch in his throat as he recognized the form. It was Nightmare, in his younger years. Michael couldn't believe his eyes. Nightmare, his loyal companion and friend, had been lost to him for what felt like an eternity. And now, the possibility of seeing him again, even in this spectral form, filled him with a mix of emotions. He felt a pang of guilt for not being able to save him before, but also a spark of hope that they might be able to bring him back. Dagon's face twisted into an evil smile as he clenched his fist. Do what I ask of you, and you will get his soul back. Otherwise. His voice trailed off ominously. Suddenly, a loud roar filled the throne room, a pained and agonized cry that seemed to come from the very depths of hell itself. Michael and Gaia watched in horror as they saw the ghostly form of Nightmare floating beside Dagon, his unconscious body racked with pain. Gaia's heart sank as she realized the true gravity of the situation. They had to help Dagon if they wanted to save their beloved friend. At the sound of Nightmare's cry, Michael's heart sank. The thought of his dear friend's soul being trapped in hell filled him with dread and panic. Without a second thought, he raised his hand in a gesture for Dagon to stop. Stop, Michael said firmly, his eyes fixed on the ghostly form of Nightmare. As Gaia rushed towards Dagon to rescue Nightmare, Michael's heart sank with dread and panic. He knew that Dagon was not to be trifled with, and Gaia's impulsive action could have dire consequences. However, before he could intervene, a powerful gust of wind shot from Dagon's body, throwing both Michael and Gaia off their feet and pinning them against the wall. "What do you want?" Michael demanded, his voice strained as he struggled to catch his breath. Despite his natural inclination to rebel against anyone who tried to control him, Michael realized that he was in no position to challenge Dagon's authority. The realm of hell was an inhospitable place, and Dagon was the supreme ruler who held absolute power over it. Although the previous Dark Lord had the power to go against Dagon, Michael's current version was weak in front of him. Knowing that Dagon held the soul of Nightmare, Michael couldn't afford to provoke him. Gaia's failed attempt at rescuing the soul was a reminder of how powerless they were in hell. With a sense of dread and defeat, Michael growled, "Tell me what you want me to do." He didn't dare fight against Dagon in a realm where he held absolute power. Getting back Nightmare's soul was his priority, and he was willing to do whatever it took to get it back. It was a difficult pill to swallow, but Michael knew that he would do anything to get Nightmare's soul back. He glanced at Gaia, who was still recovering from the gust of wind that had sent her flying. He felt a surge of anger and frustration, but he knew that now was not the time to act on it. He needed to focus on the task at hand, whatever it might be. "How can I be sure that this is not some sort of trick?" Michael asked, his voice tinged with suspicion. Dagon raised an eyebrow, a hint of amusement playing on his lips. "You have no reason to doubt me," he replied coolly. "And besides, what choice do you have but to believe me? If you want the soul of your dear friend back, you will do as I say." Michael's jaw clenched as he fought to control his anger. He knew that Dagon was right, he had no other choice but to trust him. Dagon's voice dripped with sinister amusement as he spoke. "Luckily for you, this task is right up your alley. You are known for your skill in killing, after all. I need you to eliminate someone for me." With a flick of his wrist, a holographic image appeared beside him, revealing a long-haired orc with a muscular build and a fierce expression. The orc's eyes seemed to glint with a hint of cruelty, and his armor was adorned with the bones of his enemies. "Go kill him and bring his head to me. Getting back Nightmare's soul is just as easy as this," Dagon said nonchalantly, his voice echoing through the throne room. With a flick of his wrist, the force that had been pinning Michael and Gaia against the wall dissipated, and they landed on the ground with a thud. Michael and Gaia exchanged a glance, both of them knowing that they had no other choice but to agree to Dagon's demands. Dagon turned his back to Michael and Gaia and began ascending the stairs leading to his throne, the echoes of his footsteps resonating through the silent chamber. As he climbed, he continued to speak in his nonchalant tone. "My minion will guide you to his last known location. You have 3 hours to complete the task," he said, his voice carrying a hint of warning. Michael opened his mouth to say something, but before he could even utter a word, a sudden force enveloped him and Gaia, and they were instantly teleported away from the throne hall. The world around them dissolved into nothingness before being replaced by a dark, twisted landscape. The suddenness of the teleportation caught them off guard, and they stumbled as they landed on the hard ground. As they regained their footing, Michael took a deep breath, steeling himself for the task ahead. As Michael and Gaia were searching for Dagon's minion, a loud buzzing sound caught their attention. They turned to see a giant mosquito hovering in front of them. The mosquito was at least 6 feet long and had a wingspan wider than Michael's outstretched arms. Its long, thin legs were covered in a dense layer of hair, and its bulbous eyes gleamed in the dim light of the realm of hell. Before Michael could react, Gaia, who was always quick to action, shot the mosquito down. "Wait, wait, wait," the mosquito cried out in a whiny buzzing sound. "I am not your target, I'm here to guide you to it." Michael raised an eyebrow, surprised at the fact that a mosquito was capable of speech. "You're our guide?" he asked skeptically. The mosquito nodded frantically. Yes, I swear on my proboscis. I'll show you the way, just don't squish me." "Sorry about that," Michael said, offering the mosquito a helping hand to get back in the air. "We're a bit on edge after what happened in the castle. I understand, the mosquito replied, still buzzing nervously. But trust me, I'm on your side. I'm the best guide around here. Now, let's get going before any more mishaps happen. As Michael and Gaia followed the panicky mosquito through the hellish landscape, they couldn't help but drown in their own thoughts. The thought of having to kill someone weighed heavily on Michael's mind, while Gaia couldn't shake off the image of Nightmare's ghostly figure. Meanwhile, the mosquito continued to chatter on in a whiny voice, providing a commentary on the grotesque and macabre scenery around them. Oh, look at that lovely sulfuric lake over there. Makes my wings itch just thinking about it, the mosquito exclaimed, sounding both panicked and amused. Be careful of the acid pools, Buzz warned. One touch, and you'll be burned to a crisp. And watch out for the hell walkers, they're a nasty bunch. And whatever you do, don't step on the lava rocks. They're hotter than the sun. Michael and Gaia listened in silence, drowning in their own thoughts. Buzz's chattering was both funny and annoying at the same time, and they couldn't help but tune him out. However, every now and then, Buzz's panicked buzzing would snap them back to attention. Michael and Gaia could barely keep up with the mosquito's rapid chatter, but couldn't help but find its comical observations amusing. And watch out for those fiery geysers. One wrong step, and poof. You'll be roasted alive, the mosquito continued, flitting around their heads. Despite the absurdity of their situation, Michael and Gaia remained focused on their mission, determined to do whatever it takes to retrieve Nightmare's soul. But for the moment, they couldn't help but listen to the mosquito's ramblings and let out a few chuckles. Are you even listening to me? Buzz screeched, his wings buzzing furiously. I'm trying to save your lives here. Michael sighed. Yes, we're listening, Buzz. But can you give us a moment of silence to gather our thoughts? Silence? In hell? Buzz cackled. Good luck with that. But sure, go ahead, take all the time you need. Michael and Gaia exchanged a tired look as Buzz continued to chatter on. It was going to be a long journey. As they flew across the barren wasteland, Buzz pointed out various landmarks, such as the Lake of Fire, which he described as a great spot for swimming if you didn't mind being burned alive. Michael and Gaia couldn't help but shake their heads in amusement at Buzz's dark sense of humor. His buzzing voice was surprisingly entertaining, and his comical observations gave them a much-needed distraction from the horrors of hell. Though the weight of their task still hung heavy over them, the levity provided by Buzz's chatter allowed them to forget the danger that lay ahead momentarily. As Buzz continued to guide Michael and Gaia through the hellish landscape, his commentary had eased their worries and fears. However, his light-hearted tone suddenly took a dark turn when he brought up his ex-girlfriend. You know that orc you're supposed to kill? I bet he stole my girlfriend. Buzz exclaimed, his buzzing voice filled with anger. Michael and Gaia exchanged a bewildered look, unsure how to respond to the mosquito's sudden outburst. I mean, I may look like this, but I'm a killer at heart. I could take him down in a million ways, Buzz boasted, flexing his wings as if he were some sort of warrior. Michael couldn't help but chuckle at the sight of the tiny mosquito trying to act tough. Gaia, too, had a small smile on her face. As they flew over the landscape of hell, Buzz continued to vent his frustrations about his ex-girlfriend and her alleged affair with the orc. That stupid orc is lucky Dagon sent you after him, he grumbled. Otherwise, I would have taught him a lesson he wouldn't forget. Michael and Gaia exchanged a look but said nothing, not wanting to provoke Buzz any further. Buzz continued to ramble on about his plans to take down the orc, describing in hilarious detail the various methods he would use to kill him. I would have stung him with my venomous tail and then buzzed around his head until he couldn't take it anymore, he exclaimed, his wings buzzing furiously with excitement. Gaia couldn't help but giggle at the absurdity of it all while Michael simply shook his head and sighed. Even in the midst of their dangerous mission, Buzz's antics provided a much-needed moment of levity. Following Michael and Gaia followed Buzz's directions, they eventually reached a barren wasteland, with only occasional bursts of flames in the distance. The sky above them was a sickly shade of green, with lightning bolts crackling in the clouds. Buzz led them to a rocky outcrop, where Michael saw a dark cave in the distance, surrounded by an ominous aura. The wind howled around them, and Michael could feel the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. "Is that where we're headed?" Michael asked, his voice barely audible over the howling winds. Buzz pointed his long, thin leg towards the cave and exclaimed, "Yes. That's where the cheatin' orc resides, and I'm gonna make him pay for what he did to me and my girl." Michael and Gaia exchanged a skeptical glance as they looked at the giant mosquito in front of them. Gaia whispered to Michael, "Do you think he knows he's a mosquito and not a warrior?" But Buzz didn't seem to care about their doubts. He continued to boast about his fighting skills. "I'll take him down with one swift bite of my proboscis. Or maybe I'll use my powerful wings to create a gust and blow him away." Michael couldn't help but chuckle at the thought of the 6-foot-long mosquito attempting to take down an orc. "You know, Buzz, I think you're underestimating the orc's strength. He might not go down as easily as you think." But Buzz was too busy pumping himself up to listen. "Nonsense. I am Buzz, the mighty mosquito warrior. No orc can defeat me." As they approached the cave, Buzz's bravado started to waver. He began to buzz nervously, "Maybe we should wait outside and come up with a better plan. Or maybe we can just ask him nicely to give me back my girl." Gaia rolled her eyes and muttered under her breath, "Yeah, because that's definitely going to work." Michael sighed and turned to Buzz. "Listen, Buzz. We have a job to do. We need to get in there and take down the orc. Are you with us?" Buzz hesitated for a moment, his wings fluttering uncertainly. But then he straightened up, puffing out his chest. "Of course, I'm with you. I'm Buzz, the fearless mosquito warrior. Let's go get that orc." Chapter 947, Devotee of Noah from Another Realm. As a seasoned assassin, Michael knew the importance of thorough preparation before taking on a target. He would typically start by gathering intelligence on the target's habits, movements, and routines. This could involve scouting out their usual locations, monitoring their communications, and identifying their vulnerabilities. Once Michael had a clear understanding of his target, he would then carefully plan his approach. This would involve identifying the best time and location to strike, considering potential obstacles or hazards, and determining the most effective method for carrying out the assassination. Finally, Michael would ensure he had all the necessary equipment and resources at his disposal. This could include weapons, tools for disabling security measures, and escape routes. By taking these steps, Michael could increase his chances of success while minimizing the risk of being caught or discovered. Standing before the ominous cave, Michael assessed his options. Sneaking into the cave was one possibility, but it was risky because he had no idea what kind of traps or obstacles might be waiting for him inside. The other option was to lure the orc out into the open and confront him directly. Michael weighed the pros and cons of both options and ultimately decided that the latter was the safer choice. He could use his combat skills to defeat the orc in a fair fight rather than risking his life in a trap-filled cave. Michael couldn't understand why Dagon didn't come and kill the orc himself. He couldn't fathom the idea that the ruler of hell was weaker than the orc. However, he didn't have the luxury of pondering on this any further. Michael stood outside the cave, analyzing the situation before him. He decided to take action and raised his hand, channeling his dark energy. Suddenly, a bolt of black lightning shot from the tip of his finger, illuminating the area with its ominous glow. Buzz slowly flew backward, his 6-foot-long body trembling with fear. His bulbous eyes widened as he watched Michael unleash the bolt of lightning. Despite his tough talk earlier, Buzz was now realizing that he was way over his head. He covered himself with his wings and prayed for safety. After firing the lightning bolt, Michael tensed, waiting for the orc to appear. Sure enough, the ground began to shake and stir, and a moment later, the massive figure of the orc emerged from the depths of the cave. He was a towering figure with bulging muscles that rippled beneath his armor. His long hair was tied back in a loose knot, and his fierce eyes scanned the landscape. In one hand, he held a giant sword, which he dragged along the rocky ground behind him. Michael and Gaia remained calm before the orc, who seemed unperturbed by their presence. "I was wondering when you would come to take my life," the orc said calmly, as though he had been expecting them. Michael couldn't help but make a joke, pointing towards Buzz. I heard you stole his girlfriend, he said with a smirk. At the mention of his girlfriend, Buzz's tiny heart skipped a beat. He felt a surge of anger and embarrassment, and for a moment, he considered flying away from the area. But he knew that he couldn't abandon Michael and Gaia, not when they were so close to their goal. So instead, he buzzed around Michael's head, trying to make himself heard above the wind. The orc raised an eyebrow, looking from Michael to Buzz and back again. I see, he said, his voice laced with amusement. So you're here for revenge, little mosquito? Well, I'm afraid you'll be disappointed. I don't have a girlfriend, stolen or otherwise. Buzz let out a high-pitched whine, clearly not believing the orc's words. Don't listen to him. He's lying. I saw him with her myself. The orc's response was unexpected as he simply shrugged, and a wry smile played at the corners of his mouth. Maybe I swatted her accidentally, he quipped, his tone betraying a hint of amusement. As they stood there facing the orc, Buzz flew over to Michael and whispered urgently in his ear, How sure are you that you can take him down? I forgot to take my meds, and if you can give me enough time, I can fly back to the castle, take my meds, and come back to help you fight him. Michael shot Buzz a skeptical look, unsure if the mosquito was bluffing or not. However, he couldn't afford to take any chances, especially with Nightmare's soul on the line. Well, be fine, Buzz. Just stay out of harm's way, he replied, hoping to reassure the jittery insect. Buzz nodded, his wings buzzing nervously, as Michael turned his attention back to the orc. The orc had crossed his arms and was regarding Michael and Gaia with a look of mild interest. Michael couldn't help but feel a twinge of unease at the orc's nonchalant attitude. Michael's voice was calm but firm as he addressed the orc. Normally, I don't take anyone's life without knowing what they did. But in your case, I have to make an exception. Dagon has someone I care about, and he wants your life as the price. So, do you have anything to tell us before we do this? Michael carefully observed the orc, trying to gauge his cultivation level. But to his surprise, he couldn't get a read on the orc's strength. Despite this uncertainty, Michael remained confident in his abilities. His instincts had never failed him before, and they told him he could take down the orc. The orc broke the silence, his voice low and steady. I only have one request, he said, holding out a silver pendant. When you take my life, take this and give it to the bringer of light before you fight him. Michael's heart skipped a beat at the mention of the bringer of light. The memory of discovering the truth about his family still stung, and the name Noah was like a punch to the gut. Noah, the god of light and Michael's twin brother. He clenched his fist, feeling a wave of anger and sadness wash over him. The orc leveled his sword at Michael, proclaiming, One day, the bringer of light shall emerge from the mortal realm and bring radiance to the darkened domain of the gods. He shall put an end to the heinous actions of the gods, starting with you. Michael was completely taken aback by the orc's words. He couldn't make sense of what the orc was saying, but one thing was certain, this orc was not from his world. The way he spoke of the realm of the gods was unlike anything Michael had ever heard before. It was as though the orc had lived in a completely different world, one that was beyond Michael's comprehension. So, you serve the god of light, Noah, and wish for him to kill me? Michael snickered, his eyes narrowing in suspicion. Well, thanks for telling me. Now, I can take your life without any hesitation or remorse, he continued, his voice dripping with sarcasm and contempt. Michael had no idea what kind of allegiance this orc had with Noah, but he couldn't let that distract him from his mission. The fate of Nightmare's soul hung in the balance, and he couldn't afford to be sidetracked by this orc's beliefs. As Michael raised his sword, the orc simply smirked, his eyes filled with a kind of resignation. He knew that his time had come and was ready to face his fate. May you never step into the realm of gods, the orc spat, his voice filled with venom. Take my life in an honorable duel, Dark Lord. The orc's challenge for an honorable duel didn't faze Michael, who calmly took a step back and prepared himself for the fight. He glanced over his shoulder at Gaia, who nodded in agreement with his decision. She had faith in Michael's abilities, after all, He had defeated Peter's Hell Walker form and had the power to topple kingdoms. Even though the orc emitted strange energy radiation around him, Gaia was confident that he posed no real threat to Michael. Michael raised his hand with a sense of purpose, and in response, his dark sword flew out of its sheath and landed squarely in his hand. He swung it around once to get a feel for its weight and balance, then pointed it towards the orc, taunting him to make the first move. The orc charged at Michael with his giant sword raised, determined to take him down. Michael dodged his attacks with ease, his movements graceful and precise. He countered with swift strikes of his own, his dark sword glinting in the dim light of the realm of hell. As the duel between the orc and Michael continued, sparks flew, and the sound of clanging swords echoed through the wasteland. The orc was a fierce opponent, but Michael's skill and agility were unmatched. He could sense the orc's attacks before they even happened, and he effortlessly parried each strike with his dark sword. The duel seemed to go on for hours, but in reality, only a few seconds had passed since the battle began. Despite only a few seconds passing, Michael quickly learned that the orc was an exceptional swordsman. Michael's Sword of Destiny technique was renowned for its power and ability to defeat any swordsman, yet the orc managed to deflect Michael's attacks. Michael was surprised at the orc's swordsmanship skills. But what surprised him even more was the strength and durability of the orc's sword, which withstood the full force of the dark sword's attack. Although the orc deflected the dark sword without directly clashing with it, the dark sword still managed to chip away at the orc's sword, leaving a small mark on its surface. Unbeknownst to Michael, Noah had conducted an extensive study of the previous Dark Lord's abilities 5,000 years ago. He wrote his findings in a book and sent it to the realm of gods before the previous Dark Lord reset the universe. The orc that Michael was facing was one of the divine beings who had managed to acquire a few pages from this sacred book, which contained information about the Dark Lord's Sword of Destiny. With this knowledge, the orc had trained himself to become a formidable opponent for Michael, hoping to fulfill his duty to serve Noah and stop the atrocities of the gods. Michael had always appreciated a good sword fight as it helped him hone his skills. However, he had no time to spare today. He was running short on time and needed to end the fight quickly. As the orc aggressively attacked Michael, hoping to land at least one hit, Michael blocked the orc's sword with the dark sword. He then quickly raised his other hand and summoned a powerful wind blast, sending the orc flying backward. Michael's wind blast was so powerful that it sent the orc crashing into a nearby boulder, shattering it into pieces. The orc groaned in pain as he struggled to get back on his feet. Michael slowly walked towards the orc, sword in hand, ready to deliver the final blow. As Michael approached the orc, a thick aura of darkness began to emanate from him, causing the surrounding area to turn pitch black. The orc struggled to get back on his feet, but before he could fully stand up, Michael clenched his fist, and the darkness around the orc coalesced into an invisible hand that pushed the orc back to the ground, holding him in place. The orc strained against the grip of the darkness, but it was no use. Michael had complete control over the shadows. Many fear the darkness, but they forget that it is within the shadows where true power lies. Embrace the darkness, and you shall never fear the light again, Michael said. As the orc tried to break free from the darkness that enveloped him, Michael's eyes began to glow with a sinister black light. It was as if the darkness within him was manifesting itself in his eyes, ready to strike down any who dared oppose him. With a focused stare, Michael unleashed a barrage of dark energy beams that shot out from his eyes and struck the struggling orc with deadly precision, causing the ground beneath them to tremble. Chapter 948, Mugashuka's Ultimatum. During Michael and Gaia's time in Hell, time moved differently. 1 hour in Hell was equivalent to a month in the real world. Thus, while only 6 hours had passed for them, 6 months had gone by in the outside world. During that time, much had changed, especially in the Guardian Guild. It had become divided into several factions, each vying for power, and the Alpha Guardians were struggling to maintain control and prevent the guild from falling apart. The once united front of the guild had shattered, and the members were now more focused on their personal goals and ambitions than the greater good of protecting the realm. Meanwhile, Big Bertha sailed fiercely under the wrathful sky, with the clouds thundering and the waves crashing against the sturdy ship. The wind howled with such intensity that it was almost deafening, as if nature itself was warning the crew of impending danger. The dark clouds cast a shadow over the ship, and flashes of lightning illuminated the restless sea. In the captain's cabin, the atmosphere was vastly different. It was a cozy and warm space, filled with rich wooden furnishings and soft candlelight. The walls were adorned with maps and charts depicting different areas of the sea, and a large desk was placed in the center of the room, piled high with books and scrolls. The captain's chair was made of leather and positioned so that the captain could look out of the window, which offered a breathtaking view of the tumultuous sea outside. The cabin was scented with the sweet aroma of spiced rum, and the gentle crackling of the fireplace added to the coziness of the space. Eve Voldegard stood sternly behind the grand table, her long black hair cascading down her back. She wore black armor that accentuated her warrior's arms, with only her hands exposed. Her armor had a black cape that fluttered behind her with the gusts of wind that rocked the ship. Despite her beauty, she exuded a commanding and intimidating aura, a testament to her strength and experience as a warrior. "How much longer until we reach our destination?" she asked in a collected tone, her eyes piercing through Corey, Gibson and Saber, who were standing at the opposite end of the table. "This storm is delaying our journey, Lady Eve. If it persists, it may take us several more days to reach the island," Corey replied, his voice struggling to be heard above the thundering sounds of the storm. Eve's hands slammed onto the table, causing the entire cabin to tremble. "And what about your airships, Gibson? Can they withstand this storm and get us there any faster?" she demanded, her patience wearing thin. Gibson hesitated before answering. "I'm afraid not, my lady. Big Bertha is the only ship that can survive in these treacherous conditions." "Damn it." Eve swore under her breath, slamming her fists on the table again, causing everyone in the cabin to tremble in fear. Everyone except Saber, who remained cool and collected. The storm outside raged on, mirroring the turmoil within Eve, who knew that time was running out for her. Eve's voice echoed through the captain's cabin as she reminded Corey, Gibson, and Saber of their mission's urgency. "We cannot afford any delays. Remember that we only have 3 weeks to retrieve the crystal for Mugashuku. If we fail, the consequences will be catastrophic. Our army and everything Ghost has built will be destroyed," she said, her voice quivering with fear. Eve had experienced the terror of Mugashuku firsthand, having ventured deep into the pit of the Stormville Mountain and catching a glimpse of the four-headed hydra that lurked there. As the memory of Mugashuku flooded Eve's mind, she shuddered with fear. The memory of the four-headed hydra was etched into her mind, each of its heads with glowing red eyes that seemed to bore into her soul. She remembered the deafening roar that shook the mountain and the feeling of dread that gripped her heart. As she spoke of Mugashuku, her voice trembled with fear, and her hands shook uncontrollably. To Eve, Mugashuku was the epitome of terror. The darkness in the pit cloaked his terrifying body, making it difficult to see him clearly. But the glowing pair of eyes in each head had burned an image in her mind that she could never forget. Mugashuka's size and strength had been overwhelming, and the mere thought of facing him again sent a chill down her spine. Eve was still haunted by the memory of being in close proximity to the abomination that was Mugashuku. The mere thought of the godly beast lying dormant beneath the southern continent and absorbing the arch-energy, resulting in the energy void that plagued the land, sent shivers down her spine. She was terrified that a monstrosity of that magnitude could exist in the same world as her. But what terrified her more was the knowledge that her best friend, Ghost, had struck a deal with this monstrosity. It was something only he would dare to do, and it left Eve wondering just how far he would go to achieve his goals. As she thought about Mugashuku, Eve couldn't help but shudder at the memory of the shocking scene where she was suddenly teleported into his lair. The overwhelming sense of fear had left her barely able to recall the conversation she had with the godly beast. All she could remember were fragments of the encounter, the blinding darkness that surrounded her, the glowing pair of eyes in each of Mugashuka's 4 heads, and the overwhelming feeling of being completely helpless in the face of such an immense and terrifying entity. Eve had been transported to the lair of Mugashuku without warning or explanation. She was surrounded by darkness and the only light came from the glowing pair of eyes in each of the 4 heads of Mugashuku. The air was thick with tension and Eve could feel Mugashuka's gaze boring into her. You are the one called Eve, Mugashuku rumbled, his voice deep and ominous. Eve nodded, unable to find her voice. I have a message for Ghost, Mugashuku continued. He has failed to deliver the crystal to me in a timely manner. If it is not delivered to me on the island of Isendar within 3 weeks, I will destroy everything he has built and bring an end to this world. Eve felt her heart drop at Mugashuku's threat. She knew how important the crystal was to Ghost, and she knew that he would stop at nothing to protect it. She took a deep breath and tried to gather her courage. What do you want? She asked. Mugashuku turned his gaze to her, his eyes boring into her soul. You can deliver the crystal to me yourself, he said. I will give you a map of the island of Isendar. If you deliver the crystal to me within 3 weeks, I will spare Ghost and his world. Eve nodded, knowing she had no other choice. She took the map from Mugashuku and prepared to leave. One more thing, Mugashuku said, his voice low and menacing. If you fail to deliver the crystal to me, I will destroy everything you hold dear. Eve shuddered at the threat, knowing that Mugashuku was not one to make idle promises. She took a deep breath and prepared to face the daunting task ahead of her. Eve shook her head to clear her mind and snapped back to reality. Then she raised her hand towards a corner of the room. Suddenly, the room trembled slightly as a gust of wind picked up and her hammer flew through the air, landing firmly in her outstretched arm. The weapon was a sight to behold, with its black metal and silver engravings glistening in the dim light of the cabin. The center of the hammer was adorned with a skull that seemed to glare at anyone who dared to challenge Eve's might. As the hammer landed in her grasp, the room trembled slightly, emphasizing her immense strength. After creating a portal to his forge, Michael was short on time to forge Eve a new hammer. Instead, he made some adjustments to her current hammer and gave it as a gift to her through Azazel, while she was in seclusion. It was Michael who asked her to go into seclusion in the pocket dimension attached to Abyss in the Dark Forest. The reason being he knew that the Dark Army needed a leader other than him and Gaia, and as much as Michael knew about Azazel's strength, he believed that the demon butler was not fit to be a leader, whereas Eve was. Thus, Michael made the decision to send her into seclusion, where she recently broke through to the half-immortal stage. This achievement was made possible during the crisis of the Guardian Guild. It was a decision made by Michael, relying on his instincts, which ultimately saved the Dark Army from being without a leader when he and Gaia were teleported to the realm of Hell. With her hammer in hand, Eve made the decision to fly through the storm and reach the island of Isendar as quickly as possible. Saber offered to accompany her, but Eve declined. Eve's voice was firm and resolute as she spoke to Saber. The howling winds outside the cabin made her words almost inaudible, but the seriousness in her voice was unmistakable. Listen to me, Saber. I need you to head back to the castle and find a way to avenge Caius. If we let the Skyhall succeed in taking over Giselle and hang our people without retaliation, it will be a huge blow to our cause. I don't even want to imagine how Gaia would react to that news. Trust me, Gaia is like a raging storm when she's angry, and you don't want to be on the receiving end of that. The mere mention of Gaia's name was enough to strike fear in the hearts of many. She was known as the Dark Queen for a reason, and her ruthless nature was infamous throughout the land. Those who had crossed her or defied her orders lived to regret it, and some didn't even live at all. Despite the Dark Lord's fearsome reputation and the terror he struck into the hearts of his enemies, many believed that he could be reasoned with, that there was a flicker of humanity buried somewhere deep within him. However, when it came to the Dark Queen, no such sentiment existed. She was known to have committed ruthless acts, including killing her own father and breaking her sister's meridians without showing mercy. Her cruelty was unmatched, and those who had witnessed her wrath knew better than to cross her. She had a heart of ice, unyielding and unforgiving, and would stop at nothing to achieve her goals. After the War of Nagaland, even some in the Dark Army itself whispered that a dark force possessed her, as no human could possess such a level of darkness within them. In simple terms, when she was angry, it was like a storm descended upon them, and no one was safe from her wrath. Eve paused for a moment before continuing. I want you to work with Elidor to find a way to break through their barrier and make them pay for their crimes. Can I count on you to do this for us? Eve's words were like a call to arms, and Saber could sense the urgency in her tone. He nodded resolutely and replied, "You can count on me, my lady. I won't let you down." Eve nodded at them, her eyes burning with determination as she left the room without giving any room for negotiation. Stepping outside the cabin, Eve was immediately hit with the full force of the storm. The wind howled around her and the rain pelted her armor, making it hard to see. But she had her mission in mind and wasn't about to let the storm stop her. With her powerful arms, she raised her hammer above her head and took to the sky. The wind whipped through her long black hair and cape as she soared through the storm, determined to reach the island of Isendar and complete her mission. Chapter 949, Crystal holding an ancient evil. As Eve flew through the storm, the roaring winds and crashing waves seemed to bend to her will. Her black armor glistened with raindrops as she sliced through the tempestuous sky with graceful determination. The storm raged around her, lightning illuminating her path and thunder echoing her resolve. Increasing her speed, she left Big Bertha and its crew behind, her figure becoming smaller and smaller in their view. The ship rocked and swayed beneath the ferocity of the storm, while Eve soared above, unaffected by its chaos. The rain lashed against her face, mingling with the determination etched on her features. Her grip tightened around the handle of her hammer, the engraved skull at its center serving as a reminder of the darkness that coursed through her veins. Through the turbulent skies, Eve maintained a steadfast course, her eyes fixed on the distant horizon where Isendar awaited. She navigated the treacherous winds and surging currents, her movements fluid and precise, as if she had become one with the storm itself. Her journey through the tempest was a testament to her unwavering resolve and indomitable spirit. As Eve flew through the storm, leaving Big Bertha's ship behind, her presence radiated power and determination, leaving no doubt that she was on a mission that would decide the fate of the Dark Army. As Eve soared through the storm-ridden sky, her gaze remained fixed on the distant horizon. The relentless tempest roared around her, with lightning illuminating the darkened clouds and raging tornadoes swirling in a fearsome dance. As she drew closer to her destination, the silhouette of Isendar emerged from the chaotic backdrop. The island was veiled in an ominous shroud of crackling lightning bolts and tempestuous winds, making it appear like a fortress of elemental forces. The tumultuous weather that engulfed the island seemed to mirror the turbulence within Eve's own heart. Undeterred by the violent conditions, she pushed through the howling gusts and surging currents, navigating the treacherous airspace with an unwavering focus. The lightning crackled around her, illuminating her figure against the darkened sky, lending an aura of electrifying intensity to her presence. The tornadoes that encircled the island twisted and churned, their dark funnels reaching toward the heavens. They seemed like guardians of the forbidden realm, warning trespassers of the dangers that awaited within. Yet, Eve pressed on, undaunted by the elemental onslaught. As she approached Isendar, a surge of adrenaline coursed through her veins. The island's jagged cliffs and hidden caves beckoned her, promising both treacherous trials and unimaginable secrets. Lightning bolts continued to dance across the sky, highlighting the rugged terrain and accentuating the ominous atmosphere that surrounded the island. With every passing moment, Eve's determination grew stronger, and the storm's ferocity seemed to bend to her will. She had arrived at the precipice of destiny, ready to face the challenges that awaited her on the treacherous shores of Isendar. As Eve approached the island of Isendar, her gaze was drawn to a towering structure that stood defiantly amidst the chaos of the storm. It was a silver tower, gleaming with an otherworldly radiance, rising high into the tempestuous sky. Lightning crackled and arced across its surface, giving it an ethereal glow. At the pinnacle of the tower, a mesmerizing sight awaited Eve, a pulsating energy ball. It hovered above, emanating a brilliant, crackling aura that seemed to fuel the storm raging around the island. The ball surged with raw power, its electric tendrils reaching out like living lightning, casting an eerie illumination across the turbulent atmosphere. As Eve drew closer, she could feel the energy ball's magnetic pull, resonating with the depths of her being. It seemed to pulse with an intensity that matched the storm's ferocity, as if it were the very source of the tempest itself. The crackling energy danced and flickered, casting an otherworldly light that reflected in Eve's determined eyes. A mix of awe and unease swirled within her. She sensed that this energy ball held tremendous significance, its existence intricately intertwined with the island's storm-ridden nature. It felt like a nexus of power, a focal point where the raw forces of nature converged in an awe-inspiring display. Eve's mind raced with questions, contemplating the origins and purpose of this enigmatic energy ball. Could it be the catalyst for the chaotic weather that had engulfed the island, or could it be something related to the crystal Mugashuku ordered her to bring him? Its crackling energy hinted at an untapped potential waiting to be harnessed or unleashed. As the wind whipped around her and the thunder roared in the distance, Eve knew that she had to uncover the secrets held within the silver tower and the pulsating energy ball atop it. It was a mission she accepted willingly, driven by a desire to unravel the mysteries of Isendar and bring order to the storm's unrelenting fury. With each step toward the tower, Eve could feel the energy ball's influence grow stronger, its pull drawing her closer to the heart of the storm. She steeled herself, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that her journey into the unknown would reveal truths that could reshape the very fabric of her world. Within the towering structure, a group of dwarves scurried about in a state of nervous agitation. The air was heavy with an atmosphere of urgency as they hurriedly moved through a dimly lit corridor beneath the tower. The hall exuded an aura of ancient mystery, with shadowy recesses and worn stone walls that seemed to bear the weight of countless years. Torchlight flickered along the corridor, casting dancing shadows that played upon the weathered tapestries and worn insignias adorning the walls. The air was thick with a mix of apprehension and determination, their hushed whispers filling the space as they carried out their tasks with meticulous precision. At the heart of this darkened hall stood a mesmerizing sight, a crystal of immense power, encased within an ethereal shroud of swirling black mist. Its luminescent glow permeated the chamber, casting an otherworldly light that illuminated the dwarves' hasty efforts. The crystal, a mesmerizing gem of untold significance, pulsed with an overwhelming intensity, radiating waves of potent energy. Its surface shimmered with intricate patterns, as if the very essence of power was etched into its core. The dwarves had ingeniously fashioned a complex contraption to harness the crystal's might, a testament to their craftsmanship and determination. Gears whirred and mechanisms clicked as the dwarves worked feverishly, their brows furrowed with concentration. Their hands moved swiftly, adjusting dials, connecting conduits, and aligning delicate components, all with the hope of unlocking the crystal's true potential. Each movement was accompanied by muttered incantations and the occasional spark of arcane energy. The atmosphere in the hall crackled with anticipation, mingled with a sense of trepidation. The dwarves understood the immense responsibility they carried, aware of the consequences should they fail in their endeavor. The fate of Isendar and the storm-ravaged island hung in the balance, their every action a vital step toward restoring equilibrium. As the dwarves persisted in their task, their determination burned bright, fueled by their deep-rooted knowledge of the crystal's significance. They were driven by a collective purpose, knowing that success would bring salvation to their homeland and quell the relentless storm that ravaged the land. In this chamber, within the embrace of the ancient tower, the dwarves strived tirelessly, driven by a combination of expertise, faith, and an unwavering belief in the power of their creation. Their work held the promise of redemption, an opportunity to restore balance and harness the incredible forces contained within the enigmatic crystal. Reeling from the devastating loss of their catastrophic weapon in Dalgarum, the dwarves found themselves in a desperate state. Driven by a burning desire for revenge against the elves, they were determined to construct a new weapon capable of obliterating their enemies, all without relying on Hammond's assistance. Unbeknownst to them, the true culprits behind the destruction of their weapon and port were none other than Noah and the Guardians, working covertly to prevent further bloodshed and chaos. Within the hushed halls of their underground forges, the dwarves toiled tirelessly, their brows furrowed with frustration and their hearts heavy with the weight of their recent defeat. The resounding echoes of their hammers and chisels reverberated through the cavernous chambers, a symphony of determination intermingled with a lingering sense of betrayal. In their minds, the elves were responsible for the annihilation of their weapon and the decimation of their once thriving port. Blinded by anger and fueled by a fierce sense of pride, the dwarves were yet to discover the truth. Their assailants were not their elven foes, but rather unexpected allies who sought to avert a catastrophe that would plunge the realms into deeper turmoil. Unaware of the Guardian's intervention, the dwarves harbored a deep-seated resentment, their minds consumed with visions of vengeance. Each swing of the hammer, each measured stroke of their craftsmanship, was an act of defiance, a fervent attempt to reclaim their honor and demonstrate their formidable prowess. Their forges burned bright with the fiery intensity of their determination. Streams of molten metal cascaded into intricate molds, taking on the shape of deadly weaponry. Sparks danced like ethereal fireflies, illuminating the sweat-soaked brows of the tireless artisans. The air was thick with the heady scent of heated metal, a testament to the arduous labor and unwavering resolve that filled the cavernous depths. Deep within the dimly lit chamber of the dwarves' underground stronghold, Thorgar Iron Fist, the resolute leader of the dwarven clan, stood with furrowed brows and clenched fists. Before him, his second-in-command, Urgil Stonebeard, attempted to reason with him, his voice laced with urgency and concern. Urgil's grizzled beard trembled as he pleaded, "Thorgar, we can't ignore the signs any longer. The violent storms, the energy surges, the radiation, it's costing us lives, and it won't stop. We must abandon this crystal experiment before it consumes us all." Thorgar's eyes blazed with a defiant fire, his voice tinged with a mix of anger and determination. Abandon our purpose? Our chance to bring destruction upon the Empress and her elven empire? Are you suggesting we cower in fear and surrender our vengeance? Urgil's weathered hands clenched into trembling fists as frustration filled his voice. No, Thorgar. I'm suggesting that we have underestimated the power of this crystal. It's beyond our comprehension, and it's tearing our very foundation apart. Our comrades have perished, sacrificed in the name of a cause that threatens to consume us all. Thorgar's face reddened with rage, his voice booming with defiance. Sacrifices are necessary. We will not back down now, not after everything we've endured. We will harness the power of this crystal, and the Empress will tremble before the might of our creation. Urgil's voice rose, matching the intensity of the storm outside. Thorgar, have you lost sight of what truly matters? Our clan is crumbling. Our brethren lost to the ravages of this experiment. We cannot bear witness to any more tragedy. It's time to let go, for the sake of our survival. Thorgar's eyes narrowed, his voice a low growl. Survival means nothing without purpose, Urgil. We have been wronged, humiliated by the Empress and her kin. Our vengeance fuels us, and this crystal is our chance to exact retribution. I will not let fear dictate our path. Urgil's voice cracked with desperation. Fear? Thorgar, it's not fear that drives me, it's a concern for our people, for our very existence. We must abandon this reckless pursuit before it consumes us all. Thorgar's face contorted with a mixture of anger and sorrow. If you lack the will to see this through, Urgil, then step aside. I will lead our clan to glory, with or without you by my side. Urgil's voice softened, tinged with sadness. Thorgar, you are my kin, my brother in arms. I implore you to reconsider. Our clan's strength lies not in blind vengeance but in unity and resilience. Together, we can weather any storm. Please, let us not sacrifice ourselves on the altar of our own pride. As the dwarves stumbled upon the crystal in the depths of the island, a foreboding mist enshrouded the entire land, casting an eerie darkness upon their surroundings. The black mist seemed to pulsate with a malevolent energy, whispering secrets and tempting them with unknown power. The crystal itself exuded an otherworldly aura, its surface crackling with sinister energy. Its deep, ominous glow seemed to penetrate the hearts of those who gazed upon it, filling them with a sense of unease and trepidation. It was a force far beyond the dwarves' understanding, a forbidden knowledge that tugged at their curiosity while simultaneously instilling a profound sense of dread. In the stillness of the night, some of the dwarves claimed to have heard a haunting voice, soft and ethereal, drifting through the shadows. It was the voice of a lady, sweet yet sorrowful, beseeching them to break the crystal and release themselves from its grip. Her words echoed in their minds, an echo of warning amidst the turmoil that surrounded them. But the allure of power and revenge held the majority of the dwarves captive, blinding them to the sinister nature of their experiment. They dismissed the voice as a mere figment of their imagination, believing that their triumph over the elves would overshadow any cost incurred. However, as time wore on and the storms grew more violent, doubts began to gnaw at the hearts of some of the dwarves. Whispers of the lattice voice lingered in their thoughts, and the weight of their comrades' lives lost to the crystal's radiation haunted their dreams. A lingering sense of evil permeated the very air they breathed, and the once defiant resolve started to crumble. Yet, despite the increasing turmoil and the pleas of reason from Urgil, Thorgar, consumed by vengeance and a desire for retribution, stood firm in his conviction. He would not be swayed by the ominous signs or the whispers of a lady in the night. The lure of power, the taste of victory, and the destruction of their elven adversaries fueled his determination, even as the island trembled under the weight of their recklessness. In the midst of this conflict, the fate of the dwarves hung in the balance, their future teetering on the precipice of a choice, whether to heed the warnings and break free from the crystal's grasp or to continue their relentless pursuit of revenge, risking the annihilation of their own kind in the process. The island, shrouded in darkness and enigmatic mist, held its breath, waiting to see which path the dwarves would ultimately choose. As Urgil and Thorgar engaged in a heated argument, their voices filled with frustration and anger, a sudden shift in the atmosphere seized their attention. The air grew heavy, suffused with a malevolent energy that crackled with intensity. Amidst their heated exchange, the crystal at the center of the chamber trembled, pulsating with an eerie glow. It seemed to come alive, resonating with a newfound power. The dwarves' voices faltered as they turned their gaze toward the crystal, their eyes widening with a mix of awe and trepidation. Then, from within the depths of the crystal, a furious roar echoed through the chamber, reverberating off the walls with an otherworldly intensity. The sound was both chilling and enchanting, a voice filled with wrath and authority. It was the voice of a devilish lady, her tone laced with a formidable power that demanded attention. "Break the crystal." The very air seemed to tremble as her words echoed through the chamber, her voice reaching the depths of their souls. Her rage was palpable, a tempestuous force that swept through the dwarves, freezing them in place. The echoes of her fury filled their ears, drowning out their quarrel and imposing a deep silence upon the room. Urgil and Thorgar's eyes met, their dispute forgotten in the face of this unforeseen presence. Fear etched itself into their expressions as they struggled to comprehend the magnitude of the entity within the crystal. It was a stark reminder that they were tampering with forces far beyond their comprehension, playing with fire that threatened to consume them all. In that moment, the furious roar of the devilish lady shook the very foundations of their resolve, injecting a sense of foreboding and doubt into their hearts. The argument ceased, replaced by a collective sense of apprehension and a newfound respect for the perilous nature of their experiment. "By the gods! Thorgar, did you hear that? The crystal, it spoke." Urgil trembled. "It's that lattice voice again. Urgil, we cannot ignore this any longer. We are playing with forces far beyond our understanding." Thorgar, his eyes wide with a mix of terror and determination, voiced from the crystal, growing more furious, "You dare to defy me? You shall feel the wrath of your own creation." As the echoes of the lattice wrath slowly dissipated, the chamber was left in an unsettling silence. Urgil and Thorgar, once at odds, now shared a common understanding, a glimpse into the profound darkness that resided within the crystal. The path ahead seemed more perilous than ever before, and the weight of their choices hung heavy in the air, lingering as a reminder of the treacherous path they had chosen to tread. "Thorgar, we must press on. We cannot let fear sway us from our purpose. We will control this power, and the Empress will pay for what she has done." Urgil said, his voice trembling, "Can't you see, Urgil? The crystal is consuming us, corrupting our very souls. We must break free before it's too late." Thorgar's voice was filled with desperation. "Break me, and unleash a power you cannot fathom." Chapter 950, Voldegard's Wrath. As the resonating voice of the devilish lady echoed through the chamber, Urgil and Thorgar stood frozen in shock. Their faces turned pale, mirroring the fear that coursed through their veins. However, their astonishment quickly transformed into sheer terror as the entire tower quaked violently, rattling the very core of their being. The tremors intensified, but this time, it felt different, as if an external force was exerting its influence upon the tower. The walls groaned under the strain, and debris rained down from the ceiling, shattering on the stone floor. Urgil and Thorgar struggled to maintain their footing. Their voices were drowned out by the chaos unfolding around them. With every tremor, cracks spider-webbed across the walls, threatening to bring the tower crashing down upon them. "What's happening?" Thorgar's voice reverberated through the hall, drowned out by the chaos that engulfed the tower. The bewildered faces of the other dwarves mirrored his confusion, their eyes wide with fear and uncertainty. Urgil and Thorgar exchanged alarmed glances, their hearts pounding in their chests, desperate for answers. Thorgar's eyes darted around the room, searching for someone to provide insight into the situation. But before anyone could respond, a group of soaked and disheveled dwarves burst into the hall, their breaths ragged and their faces filled with fear. Their voices overlapped, creating a cacophony of panic. "We're under attack," one of the dwarves shouted, his voice trembling with terror. Thorgar's brows furrowed, his grip on his hammer tightening. He needed more information. "By whom?" he demanded, his voice echoing through the hall. The dwarves exchanged anxious glances, struggling to comprehend the identity of their assailant. "It's a mysterious figure, wielding a powerful hammer," one dwarf finally managed to say, his voice filled with uncertainty. "She moves with unmatched speed and strength." Urgil's eyes widened, his mind racing to make sense of the chaos unfolding around them. "She tore through our defenses like a whirlwind," another dwarf added, his voice trembling. "Our barricades crumbled beneath her relentless assault." The tower shook once more, as if in response to the upheaval outside. Urgil and Thorgar exchanged a concerned glance, realizing the gravity of the situation. An unknown warrior had descended upon their island, and now their entire realm was under siege. Urgil and Thorgar stormed out of the tower without uttering a word, their determination evident in their resolute expressions. They knew they had to confront this mysterious assailant head-on and rally their fellow dwarves to defend their home. The stormy skies above mirrored the turmoil in their hearts as they braced themselves for the battle that awaited them. They would face this unknown warrior with unwavering courage, determined to protect their people and uncover the truth behind her relentless assault. As Urgil and Thorgar emerged from the tower, their eyes widened in astonishment at the scene unfolding before them. The island was a battleground, consumed by the raging storm and the ferocious clash of opposing forces. Their gaze was immediately drawn to the young woman soaring through the tempestuous sky. She possessed an otherworldly aura, her every movement a display of unrivaled power and grace. With her jet-black hair whipping in the wind and the gleaming hammer firmly gripped in her hand, she struck a formidable figure against the backdrop of swirling clouds and crackling lightning. The energy barrier that encased the island flickered and shimmered under the relentless assault. The young woman hammered away at its ethereal surface, her strikes resonating with raw power. Each blow reverberated through the air, causing the barrier to tremble under the strain of her unwavering determination. The island was a battleground, ravaged by the fury of the storm and illuminated by the flashes of lightning. Their defensive weapons, trebuchets, watchas, and cannons, stood as towering structures, waiting to unleash their destructive power. But their attention was immediately drawn to the figure soaring through the storm-filled sky. The half-immortal young woman wielded her hammer with breathtaking skill and ferocity. Her every movement was a testament to her incredible strength and agility. She shattered the incoming cannonballs with a mighty swing, sending their fragments flying in all directions. The air crackled with energy as she defied gravity, effortlessly navigating the tumultuous winds. Her attacks were relentless, hammer striking with precision and force, as she aimed to dismantle the energy barrier protecting the island. The watchas, dwarven-made war machines with multiple rocket-firing tubes mounted on a wooden frame, unleashed a barrage of projectiles toward her. But she weaved through the onslaught with astonishing grace, evading the explosions and countering with devastating blows of her own. The storm seemed to obey her will, bending to her command as she moved through the chaotic tempest. Eve's hammer became an extension of her will, a weapon of both destruction and protection. With every swing, she defied the laws of physics, intercepting cannonballs and fireballs hurtling towards her with uncanny precision. As the cannonballs approached, propelled by the force of the cannons, Eve anticipated their trajectory. With a swift motion, she brought her hammer crashing down, meeting the cannonballs head-on. The impact unleashed a shockwave, causing the projectiles to shatter into a spray of molten metal and smoke. The debris scattered harmlessly across the battlefield, unable to find their intended target. Similarly, the fireballs launched from the trebuchets arced through the air, trailing flames in their wake. Eve's keen eyes tracked their path, calculating their speed and angle. With a mighty swing of her hammer, she unleashed a concussive blast, sending shockwaves rippling through the air. The force disrupted the fireball's path, causing them to disintegrate into mere embers before they could reach their intended destination. The sight was awe-inspiring as Eve stood amidst the chaos, her hammer a blur of motion. Each swing sent ripples of energy through the air, creating a protective barrier around her. The intense heat and destructive force of the cannonballs and fireballs were absorbed by the swirling energy, leaving Eve unscathed. With each successful deflection, Eve's determination grew. She was unyielding in her pursuit to dismantle the barrier and claim victory for her cause. The sound of metal meeting metal echoed across the battlefield, a testament to the indomitable spirit and strength of the half-immortal warrior. Amidst the chaos of battle, the dwarves shouted in a tumultuous mix of anger, fear, and frustration. Their voices reverberated through the stormy air, blending with the thunderous booms of cannons and the crackling of energy barriers. "Fear not, my brethren. We shall not falter in the face of this unknown assailant." Urgel's voice rang out with a mix of apprehension and resolve, cutting through the chaotic air. The dwarves, their hearts pounding with adrenaline, exchanged anxious glances, their voices trembling with fear and confusion. "By the great forges! Who is she? And what brings her to our island?" one dwarf exclaimed, his voice laced with a mix of fear and shock. "Such raw power! It's like nothing I've ever witnessed before. How did she find us? What does she want?" another dwarf questioned, his voice filled with disbelief and a hint of curiosity. "She's tearing apart our defenses like a vengeful storm. We cannot allow her to breach our walls," a third dwarf shouted, his voice strained with determination, the urgency in his words echoing through the ranks. A sense of injustice and anger swelled among the dwarves as they grappled with the inexplicable assault. "This is madness. We've done naught to deserve this wrath. Why does she unleash such fury upon us?" a dwarf cried out, his voice tinged with righteous indignation and confusion. Urgel, his mind racing with questions, raised his voice to rally his comrades amidst the chaos. "Stand firm, my brethren. We must defend our beloved island and uncover the truth behind this relentless assault. Find out who she is, why she seeks our destruction." Urgel's voice reverberated with urgency and a steadfast determination to protect their home. Thorgar, his gaze fixed upon the tempestuous onslaught from above, unleashed a growl of frustration. "Enough with the questions. Our barriers must hold. We will not yield an inch. Ready the cannons, increase the firepower." Thorgar's voice boomed with unwavering resolve, his tone laced with a fierce determination to repel the relentless onslaught. The air crackled with tension as the dwarves, their voices a blend of despair and determination, exchanged words amidst the raging storm. "We're doing everything we can, but she defies our every effort. Her power knows no bounds," a dwarf exclaimed, his voice tinged with a mix of awe and desperation. "Like an unstoppable tempest, she laughs at our feeble attempts to subdue her. Our weapons seem futile against her might," another dwarf cried out, his voice filled with disbelief and a tinge of admiration for their mysterious adversary. The sounds of crashing waves and roaring winds intertwined with the echoes of their voices, a symphony of desperation and defiance. Urgel, his voice resolute and filled with unwavering determination, sought to embolden his comrades in the face of overwhelming odds. "Our resolve shall not waver. We stand united as warriors of the forge. Fight on, my brethren, for our island, for our honor." Urgel's voice rang out, carrying a mix of defiance and hope, fueling the dwarves' determination to withstand the storm and protect their cherished homeland. In the midst of chaos and uncertainty, their shouts and cries mingled with the relentless onslaught, forging an unbreakable spirit that resonated through the island as the dwarves bravely battled against the unyielding force that raged above them. As Thorgar's eyes blazed with determination, he bellowed a command to the dwarves, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Bring forth the mighty siege engines. unleash our most potent weapons. It's time to show this interloper the might of our dwarven craftsmanship. Thorgar's voice echoed with authority and a burning desire for vengeance. Responding to their leader's call, the dwarves scrambled into action, their movements swift and purposeful. The ground beneath their feet rumbled and quaked as if awoken by their determination. From deep within the island's core, colossal structures emerged, rising like ancient guardians awakened from slumber. These were the fabled dwarven war machines, crafted with meticulous care and imbued with the raw power of the earth itself. One of the contraptions, known as the Etherclaw, a marvel of dwarven engineering, was an imposing aerial platform adorned with an array of rotating cannons and swirling propellers. As it gracefully maneuvered through the stormy sky, its sleek metallic frame glistened with an otherworldly glow. From its cannons, it unleashed a torrent of glowing projectiles known as sky blades, ethereal blades infused with arcane energies that streaked through the air with razor-sharp precision. Guided by intricate mechanisms, the Etherclaw's Skyseeker missiles soared with celestial energy, leaving trails of stardust in their wake. With the pulsating storm caller at its core, the Etherclaw harnessed the very essence of thunderstorms, releasing concentrated bursts of lightning that arced across the heavens. This awe-inspiring dwarven creation was a symbol of power and ingenuity, an airborne force capable of defending the skies with unrivaled might. Next, the Goliath cannon, a behemoth of metal and steam, emerged from the depths. It stood as tall as a mountain, its barrel gleaming with runes of power. As the dwarves loaded it with specially crafted explosive projectiles, the Goliath cannon emitted a deep rumble, gathering energy within its core. With a thunderous roar, it launched its payload high into the stormy sky, unleashing a cataclysmic explosion that shattered the air and sent shockwaves rippling through the tempest. Completing this formidable defense line, the ironclad ballistae emerged, massive crossbows mounted on sturdy iron frames. These colossal weapons could hurl massive bolts forged with enchanted steel with pinpoint accuracy. As the dwarves took aim, the ironclad ballistae released their projectiles, which pierced the raging storm like deadly arrows, seeking out their target with unerring precision. Together, these legendary dwarven creations symbolized the resilience and ingenuity of their kind. As the newly revealed defenses took their positions, the ground beneath them shook with the weight of their power, and a surge of confidence coursed through the ranks of the dwarves. They stood tall, their hearts brimming with determination, ready to face the unknown adversary who dared to challenge them. With the resounding clash of gears and the crackling of arcane energies, the dwarven war machines unleashed their mighty arsenal upon the sky, their devastating power rivaling the storm's fury. The island trembled as lightning clashed with lightning, and the dwarves' battle cries melded with the roar of machinery, creating a symphony of defiance that echoed across the turbulent skies. In this pivotal moment, the dwarves showcased the pinnacle of their engineering prowess and harnessed the forces of nature to defend their homeland. With their newfound weapons of destruction, they vowed to stand strong and repel any threat that dared to encroach upon their domain. As the tumultuous battle raged on, a momentary lull fell upon the chaotic scene. Eve, suspended in midair with her hammer in hand, radiated an aura of commanding authority. The raging storm seemed to bow to her presence as her voice cut through the tempestuous winds, resonating with otherworldly power. "Dwarves of Isendar, your struggle is in vain," her voice boomed, echoing across the stormy sky. "Surrender now and spare yourselves from the wrath of the Dark Lord. Your feeble attempts to defy him will only bring destruction upon your heads." Her words hung in the air, carrying an undeniable weight. The dwarves paused, their gazes fixed upon the formidable figure suspended above them. The power in Eve's voice was undeniable, and even amidst the chaos, her words struck a chord of fear and uncertainty in their hearts. But the dwarves, fueled by their pride and determination, refused to yield. Their resolve surged as they defiantly raised their weapons, ready to face whatever awaited them. The challenge was clear: they would not back down, for their homeland and their honor were at stake. Eve's voice faded into the roaring storm, leaving the dwarves to brace themselves for the impending clash, their hearts filled with a mixture of apprehension and unwavering courage. As Eve gazed upon the determined dwarves, a pang of sympathy tugged at her heart. She knew the futility of their resistance, and deep down, she wished they had chosen a different path. But she also understood their unwavering pride and the dire consequences they would face if they surrendered. With a heavy sigh, Eve cast aside her internal conflict and prepared to fight with all her might. She summoned the primal forces of lightning and storm, channeling their raw energy through her being. Bolts of crackling lightning danced along her fingertips as the atmosphere around her grew charged with electricity. In an awe-inspiring display, Eve unleashed her first spell, Thunder's Fury. With a resounding clap of thunder, the sky split open as jagged bolts of lightning cascaded down from above. The electrifying tempest engulfed the battlefield, striking the ground with ferocious intensity. The very air crackled with electricity, and the dwarves found themselves amidst a storm of devastating power. Undeterred, Eve's next spell, Stormcaller's Wrath, summoned dark clouds that churned ominously above. A vortex of wind and rain spiraled around her, growing in intensity with each passing moment. Then, with a single command, a cyclone of gale-force winds swept across the island, uprooting trees and scattering debris in its wake. Rain poured in torrents, transforming the once calm sea into a tumultuous tempest. The sky became a canvas for Eve's spellcraft as she weaved a tapestry of lightning and storm. Her mastery over these elements knew no bounds as she conjured massive bolts of lightning that streaked across the sky, illuminating the darkened clouds with their dazzling brilliance. Each strike sent shockwaves reverberating through the atmosphere, unleashing a symphony of thunderous booms. The effects of Eve's spells were cataclysmic. The sky crackled with the sheer force of her lightning, and the weather itself became her weapon. The island trembled beneath the onslaught, and the once raging storm seemed to pale in comparison to the tempest she had unleashed. With each spell, Eve's determination grew, fueled by the ferocity of the storm she had summoned. She fought not only for herself but for the dwarves as well, hoping that they would soon realize the futility of their resistance and yield to the overwhelming power she commanded. Chapter 951, Corrupting Power. As Eve unleashed her powerful spells upon the dwarven defenses, the sky crackled with energy and erupted into a dazzling display of light and power. Bolts of lightning danced through the storm clouds, intertwining with the arcing energy from Eve's fingertips. Her spells crackled through the air, seeking to pierce the dwarven defenses and bring chaos to their ranks. However, the dwarven war machines proved to be formidable adversaries. Empowered by the mysterious crystal beneath the island, their defenses held strong against Eve's onslaught. The Etherclaw soared through the tempest, its cannons blazing as skyblades streaked through the air, intercepting and neutralizing Eve's spells with precision. The Stormcaller at its core channeled the fury of thunderstorms, countering the celestial energy used by Eve with bursts of concentrated lightning. Meanwhile, the Goliath cannon unleashed devastating explosive payloads, their concussive force creating shockwaves that disrupted Eve's spells and shook the very foundation of the island. The ironclad ballistae launched enchanted bolts, each one finding its mark with unerring accuracy, neutralizing the celestial energy that surrounded Eve. The clash between Eve and the dwarven war machines became a spectacle of power and might. Thunderous booms and crackling energy filled the air as spells collided with the relentless barrage of projectiles from the war machines. The stormy sky became a battleground, illuminated by flashes of light and engulfed in swirling winds. While Eve had the upper hand in terms of raw magical prowess, the dwarven war machines displayed their resilience and power, fueled by the enigmatic crystal beneath the island. With every clash, it became evident that this battle would not be easily won by either side. The clash of spells and dwarven contraptions created a mesmerizing spectacle, a testament to the indomitable spirit and ingenuity of the dwarves in the face of overwhelming odds. The mysterious crystal beneath the island pulsed with an otherworldly energy, its power resonating through the very core of the dwarven war machines. This ancient relic, harnessed by the dwarves, bestowed immense strength and vitality upon their contraptions. The crystal's energy coursed through the intricate mechanisms of the war machines, fueling their movements and augmenting their capabilities. It imbued the Etherclaw with unmatched agility and speed, allowing it to navigate through the stormy skies with unparalleled precision swiftly. The Stormcaller, at the heart of the Etherclaw, channeled the raw power of thunderstorms, amplifying its destructive potential. The Goliath cannon, powered by the crystal's energy, transformed into a behemoth of destruction. With each explosive projectile it launched, the crystal's energy amplified their devastating impact, sending shockwaves through the air and leaving trails of destruction in their wake. The ironclad ballistae, armed with enchanted bolts, absorbed a fraction of the crystal's energy, infusing their projectiles with enhanced accuracy and piercing power. As the bolts were unleashed, they tore through the stormy atmosphere, guided by the residual energy of the crystal, striking their targets with deadly precision. Despite the dwarves' ingenuity, they had only managed to harness a fraction of the crystal's true power. The enigmatic energy that surged within the crystal remained largely untapped, waiting to be unlocked and unleashed. The dwarves had glimpsed the immense potential that lay within, but they had only scratched the surface of its true capabilities. Nevertheless, even with their limited utilization of the crystal's energy, the dwarven war machines proved to be a formidable force, their power magnified by the ancient relic. The clash between Eve's spells and the dwarven defenses showcased the immense strength that the crystal bestowed upon the war machines, but it also hinted at the untapped power that lay dormant within the depths of the island. The mysterious crystal beneath the island pulsed with an otherworldly energy, its power resonating through the very core of the dwarven war machines. This ancient relic, harnessed by the dwarves, bestowed immense strength and vitality upon their contraptions. The crystal's energy coursed through the intricate mechanisms of the war machines, fueling their movements and augmenting their capabilities. It imbued the Etherclaw with unmatched agility and speed, allowing it to navigate through the stormy skies with unparalleled precision swiftly. The Stormcaller, at the heart of the Etherclaw, channeled the raw power of thunderstorms, amplifying its destructive potential. The Goliath cannon, powered by the crystal's energy, transformed into a behemoth of destruction. With each explosive projectile it launched, the crystal's energy amplified their devastating impact, sending shockwaves through the air and leaving trails of destruction in their wake. The ironclad ballistae, armed with enchanted bolts, absorbed a fraction of the crystal's energy, infusing their projectiles with enhanced accuracy and piercing power. As the bolts were unleashed, they tore through the stormy atmosphere, guided by the residual energy of the crystal, striking their targets with deadly precision. Despite the dwarves' ingenuity, they had only managed to harness a fraction of the crystal's true power. The enigmatic energy that surged within the crystal remained largely untapped, waiting to be unlocked and unleashed. The dwarves had glimpsed the immense potential that lay within, but they had only scratched the surface of its true capabilities. Nevertheless, even with their limited utilization of the crystal's energy, the dwarven war machines proved to be a formidable force, their power magnified by the ancient relic. The clash between Eve's spells and the dwarven defenses showcased the immense strength that the crystal bestowed upon the war machines, but it also hinted at the untapped power that lay dormant within the depths of the island. As Urgil observed the immense power unleashed by the dwarven war machines, a mix of astonishment and concern washed over him. His eyes widened with both awe and trepidation as he witnessed the devastating capabilities fueled by the mysterious crystal. Caught between marveling at the sheer might of their creations and grappling with the unknown nature of the crystal's power, Urgil's mind raced with conflicting thoughts. He recognized the incredible strength that the crystal had bestowed upon their weapons, amplifying their effectiveness beyond their wildest dreams. Yet, a sense of unease gnawed at him, a deep-seated fear of wielding a power they barely understood. "Thorgar, do you see what we've tapped into?" Urgil exclaimed, his voice tinged with a mix of amazement and concern. "This power, it's beyond anything we've ever imagined." Thorgar, on the other hand, stood at the precipice of temptation. The sight of the crystal-fueled weapons and their devastating impact on the battlefield ignited a fervent desire within him. The lust for power coursed through his veins, clouding his judgment and blinding him to Urgil's cautionary words. "Urgil, can't you see?" Thorgar replied, his voice filled with an intoxicating mix of excitement and ambition. "With this crystal, we can reshape the course of our destiny. We can be unstoppable." Urgil's brows furrowed as he struggled to reconcile the conflicting emotions within him. While part of him acknowledged the allure of such power, a pearl of deeper wisdom urged caution and understanding. "Thorgar, there's still so much we don't know about this crystal," Urgil implored, his voice tinged with a mix of apprehension and concern. "We must tread carefully. Power without understanding can lead to our downfall." But Thorgar's thirst for power had grown insatiable, his yearning for dominance overriding any sense of caution. His eyes glimmered with an intensity that betrayed his unwavering determination. "Urgil, you've always been cautious, always held back," Thorgar retorted, his voice filled with a hint of defiance. "But I refuse to let fear dictate our destiny. With this crystal, we can forge a new era for our people." As the battle raged on, Urgil's thoughts became consumed by the implications of wielding such untamed power. Deep down, he knew that their actions held the potential to reshape their world, for better or worse. Only time would reveal the true nature of the crystal's power and the ultimate path they would tread. Unbeknownst to the dwarves, the crystal's influence had already begun to take hold, its insidious power seeping into the depths of their souls. As they reveled in the might and glory their weapons now possessed, an undercurrent of darkness started to twist their desires, fueling their thirst for even greater power. Blinded by their achievements and driven by the lure of the crystal's energy, the dwarves remained ignorant of the subtle changes occurring within them. The once noble intentions that guided their actions began to fade, replaced by an insatiable hunger for more power, more control. Within the depths of their hearts, a flicker of darkness grew, spreading like a poison. Greed and ambition twisted their thoughts, clouding their judgment and warping their perception of what was right and wrong. The corruption of the crystal had woven its tendrils deep into their very being, whispering promises of unimaginable power and dominance. As the battle raged on, the dwarves became increasingly consumed by their lust for power. Their eyes gleamed with a newfound intensity, their minds fixated on expanding their dominion and claiming ultimate authority. Their unity shattered, replaced by a cutthroat pursuit of individual glory. Urgil, now standing on the precipice of realization, watched with a heavy heart as his comrades succumbed to the corrupting influence of the crystal. He witnessed the gradual erosion of their noble values, their noble cause now tainted by an insidious darkness. In the depths of his soul, Urgil grappled with the understanding that the crystal, once their source of hope, had become a catalyst for their downfall. The power it offered had twisted their ambitions, morphing them into beings consumed by their own desires. Urgil's heart ached for his kin, for the loss of their unity and the tarnishing of their once noble purpose. But the allure of power was difficult to resist, and as the dwarves delved deeper into the darkness, they became blind to the true cost of their actions. Unbeknownst to them, the crystal's corruption seeped further, its hold tightening with every passing moment. As Urgil stood there, torn between his inner turmoil and the allure of power, a faint whisper began to echo in the depths of his mind. At first, it was barely audible, a mere murmur dancing on the edge of his consciousness. But with each passing moment, its voice grew stronger, seeping into the very fibers of his being. "Embrace the power, Urgil," the whisper cooed, its seductive tones sending shivers down his spine. "Let go of your fears and bask in the ecstasy of dominance. The crystal offers limitless potential, a world where your desires become reality." Urgil's brows furrowed, a mixture of confusion and apprehension clouding his features. The whisper continued its relentless persuasion, its words weaving through his thoughts like a web of deceit. "Imagine the glory, Urgil," it whispered, its voice now laced with a hint of malice. "With the crystal's power coursing through your veins, you can reshape the world as you see fit. No longer bound by limitations, you will become a force to be reckoned with." As the whisper grew stronger, Urgil felt an unsettling shift within himself. A dark energy crept into his soul, intertwining with his hopes and dreams, corrupting them from within. The once noble dwarf was now teetering on the precipice of a choice that would forever define his fate. "Embrace your true potential," the whisper hissed, its words dripping with venomous allure. "Together with the crystal, you can rise above all, your name etched in history as a master of power." Urgil's heart raced, conflicting emotions warring within him. The pull of the whisper became harder to resist, its promises enticing him with promises of dominion and unbridled might. The corruption seeping from the crystal began to merge with his very essence, clouding his judgment and darkening his noble intentions. As the battle raged on, Urgil's resolve faltered, his grip on righteousness slipping. The whisper's persuasive tendrils tightened their grip on his vulnerable soul, enticing him further down the treacherous path of temptation. And in that moment, Urgil's eyes flickered with a mix of uncertainty and growing hunger for power, his very being becoming a vessel for the insidious influence of the crystal. The fate of his soul hung in the balance, teetering between the light of righteousness and the seductive embrace of darkness. As Urgil stood before the pulsating crystal, its malevolent energy seeping into his very being, the whisper in his mind grew stronger, its insidious intent crystal clear. "Break the shackles, Urgil," the voice whispered, its words dripping with venomous persuasion. "Destroy the crystal, unleash the queen of all. With her power, you shall reign supreme." Urgil's heart pounded in his chest, torn between the weight of responsibility and the allure of absolute power. The voice continued its relentless coercion, urging him to embrace his darkest desires. "Imagine the dominion, Urgil," it whispered, its tone filled with anticipation. "With the queen of all by your side, you will have the strength to reshape reality itself. The world will bow before you." Conflicting emotions churned within Urgil's troubled mind. Fear and hesitation mingled with a burning desire for control and supremacy. The corrupted energy coursing through his veins fed his growing lust for power, clouding his judgment and obscuring the consequences. "Break the crystal, Urgil," the voice hissed, its words now laced with a sinister edge. "Release the queen of all, and together you will forge a new era of darkness." Urgil's hands trembled as he contemplated the magnitude of the choice before him. He knew the perilous path he was being led down, but the allure of dominion whispered promises of greatness that proved difficult to resist. The crystal's malevolent influence intensified, amplifying the voice's insidious seduction. Urgil's soul teetered on the edge of oblivion as the darkness within him threatened to consume all that was pure and noble. In the depths of his conflicted mind, Urgil weighed the consequences of his actions. The voice's words echoed with tempting echoes, their twisted logic worming its way into his thoughts. And as Urgil stood before the pulsating crystal, his gaze fixated upon its wicked radiance, a decision hung in the air, one that would shape not only his own destiny, but the fate of all those who stood in the path of his growing darkness. Deep within the heart of the crystal, an entity of immense darkness slumbered. It was none other than one of the countless soul pieces of the queen, an ancient being of unparalleled power and the puppet master behind Mugashuku, the fearsome four-headed hydra. Though trapped within the confines of the crystal, the concentrated essence of the queen's malevolence radiated an insidious corruption energy that seeped into the very fabric of the dwarves' souls. The corrupted energy, like a malignant force, took hold of the dwarves, fueling their deepest desires and twisting them into vessels of darkness. With each passing moment, the crystal's power corrupted their thoughts, enticing them with promises of might and dominance. The dwarves found themselves drawn to its seductive allure, unable to resist its corruptive influence. As their souls were tainted by the queen's malevolence, the dwarven war machines became conduits of unimaginable power. The crystal's corrupted energy surged through the mechanisms, infusing them with an otherworldly strength. With every activation, the machines roared to life, fueled by the dark essence of the queen's soul. Their weapons became devastating instruments of destruction, capable of unleashing unimaginable devastation upon their foes. However, the cost of this power was steep. The souls of the dwarves, once noble and steadfast, were now entwined with the queen's malevolent essence. The corruption consumed their moral compasses, their judgment clouded by the twisted promises whispered within their minds. They became unwitting slaves to the darkness, pawns in the queen's grand design. Though trapped within the crystal, the queen's soul exerted its influence, spreading its dark tendrils through the corrupted energy radiating from within. It fed upon the dwarves' desires and ambitions, magnifying their darkest impulses and turning their once noble intentions into something sinister. The crystal, an unwitting prison for the queen's soul peace, was now a conduit for her malevolence. Its energy corrupted and amplified the dwarves' powers, making them an unstoppable force. But with every moment that passed, the darkness within the crystal grew, its corruptive energy permeating the very essence of the dwarves' being. Unbeknownst to the dwarves, they had unwittingly harnessed a power beyond their understanding, a power that threatened to consume them from within. As they reveled in their newfound might, the price they would pay for their alliance with darkness loomed on the horizon, ready to exact its toll. Chapter 952, Battle of the Machines. Eve's eyes widened with disbelief as she witnessed the transformation of the dwarves before her. The fear that once gripped their hearts had now dissipated, replaced by a sinister and insatiable lust for power. Their eyes, once filled with trepidation, now burned with a twisted desire that sent shivers down her spine. It was as if a dark veil had descended upon their souls, clouding their judgment and consuming their very essence. Frantically, the dwarves shouted commands and operated the war machines with an almost rabid fervor. Their actions were no longer calculated or strategic, but driven by an insidious hunger for dominance. The once noble warriors now appeared possessed, their movements erratic and frenzied. As the war machines unleashed their devastating power upon the battlefield, the dwarves reveled in the destruction they wrought. They fired cannons with reckless abandon, their shots guided not by strategy but by an unrelenting desire to obliterate their foes. The air was filled with the thunderous roar of gunfire, the acrid scent of smoke, and the crackling energy of arcane spells. Eve observed the dwarves with growing concern, sensing that something had gone horribly awry. While she couldn't pinpoint the exact cause of their transformation, a nagging suspicion whispered in the recesses of her mind. The crystal, that mysterious artifact that had captivated their attention, seemed to be at the heart of this malevolent change. Its presence and the corruptive energy it emanated seemed to have sparked this dark metamorphosis in the dwarves. Doubt crept into Eve's thoughts as she pondered the implications of the crystal's influence. Could it be that the power they had harnessed was too great for mortal souls to bear? Or was there something far more sinister at play, an ancient force manipulating their desires from within the depths of the crystal itself? As the chaos raged around her, Eve realized that she had to confront the growing darkness head-on. She couldn't allow the dwarves to succumb entirely to the malevolence that consumed them. The dwarves were filled with a bloodlust that surged through their veins. One of the dwarves shouted. His voice resonated with fervor and determination as he shouted, "To the depths with mercy! Crush 'em all! Tear 'em limb from limb!" His words were fueled by a fiery rage, a desire to unleash unforgiving wrath upon their enemies. The sheer intensity in his voice echoed the ferocity of their battle, where mercy had no place and victory could only be attained through absolute destruction. The dwarves fought with unyielding determination, their voices filled with battle lust as they clashed with the half-immortal young woman in the sky. Their gruff voices echoed through the raging storm, intermingled with curses and fierce exclamations. "By the beard of Durin, well blast her to smithereens," shouted the burly dwarf with a braided red beard, his eyes burning with fury. His muscular frame was adorned with intricate dwarven armor, etched with ancient runes. "Take that, you feckin' bitch," roared the stout dwarf with a bald head and a long scar across his cheek. He gripped the controls of the Thundercrusher with a tight grip, his knuckles turning white. His sturdy build showcased the resilience and strength of his kind. "Bring forth the fury of the mountains," bellowed the dwarf with a bushy gray beard, his eyes gleaming with a mix of excitement and wildness. His weathered face bore the scars of battles past, a testament to his experience as a warrior. Clad in heavy armor adorned with intricate engravings, he stood tall and unyielding. As the war machines unleashed their devastating firepower, the dwarves cheered and shouted profanities, their words laced with a raw intensity. Their voices mingled with the clanking of gears and the thunderous boom of cannons as they relentlessly pursued their airborne adversary. "Die, you blasted harpy!" exclaimed one dwarf, his voice filled with bloodlust as he fired the other claw's cannons. His wild beard and fiery red hair stood out against the backdrop of the stormy sky. "Take that, ye dumb wench!" yelled another dwarf, his voice hoarse with excitement. His burly frame shook with anticipation as he manned the Goliath cannon, his eyes fixed on the half-immortal young woman soaring through the tempest. The battle lust in their eyes burned brightly, fueled by the power coursing through their war machines. Their taunts and curses echoed through the storm, mixing with the roar of thunder and crackle of lightning. With every volley of projectiles and every blast of energy, they fought with a relentless fervor, determined to prove their mettle against their formidable opponent. The dwarves, their battle lust coursing through their veins, boasted with unbridled arrogance, their voices filled with defiance and profanity. "We don't give a fuck about your cultivation level, you prissy bitch," shouted the burly dwarf, his voice dripping with contempt. His muscular frame towered over his opponents, his biceps bulging beneath his dwarven armor. He spat on the ground defiantly, a wicked grin spreading across his weathered face. "Who the hell do you think you are, lass? We've faced tougher bastards than you," snarled the stout dwarf, his voice thick with defiance. His bald head glistened with sweat as he tightened his grip on the controls of the Thundercrusher, his eyes blazing with a fiery determination. "Fuck your fancy spells, you ain't nothing but a fly buzzing in the wind," bellowed the gray-bearded dwarf, his voice dripping with scorn. He pounded his chest with a gloved fist, his eyes locked on the half-immortal young woman. His battle-hardened visage betrayed the scars of countless skirmishes, a testament to his indomitable spirit. The dwarf scoffed at her presence, dismissing her with vulgar words and dismissive gestures. Their words were laced with defiance, their expressions twisted with contempt. They cared not for her origins or her companions, for in their minds, they were the true warriors, the fierce defenders of their realm. "Your fancy spells means shit in the face of our steel and stone," spat one dwarf, his voice dripping with disdain. His calloused hands gripped the controls of his war machine, his eyes blazing with defiance. "Come on, you feckin' witch. Well, show you what real power looks like," taunted another dwarf, his voice tinged with a mix of excitement and malice. His rugged features contorted into a sneer, his beard bristling with anticipation. Their boisterous boasts echoed through the stormy sky, challenging the very essence of their adversary. They cared not for her cultivation level or her companions, for they believed that their own indomitable spirit and unyielding resolve would carry them to victory. With every profanity-laden utterance, they dared the half-immortal young woman to face their unyielding wrath. As the battle raged on, Thorgon, consumed by his desire for power, had completely surrendered to the crystal's temptation. His eyes gleamed with a sinister light, his once stout heart now corrupted by the insidious whispers that echoed in his mind. He no longer held back, his actions fueled by an insatiable thirst for dominance. Urgil, on the other hand, found himself teetering on the edge of the same desire and lust for power that consumed his companion. The whispers, like tendrils of darkness, seeped into his thoughts, clouding his judgment and tempting him with promises of unimaginable might. His once steadfast resolve wavered, a flickering flame threatened by the encroaching shadows. Their souls, entangled in the seductive web woven by the crystal's power, were gradually losing sight of their true selves. Urgil could feel the pull, the allure of unlimited strength, gnawing at the core of his being. Doubt crept in, eroding the barriers he had built to protect his conscience. The choice between power and righteousness loomed before him, a formidable crossroads he was struggling to navigate. Thorgon, now unrecognizable, had become a vessel of pure ambition and corruption. His eyes glowed with a malevolent light, devoid of compassion or empathy. He reveled in the twisted whispers, a puppet dancing to the crystal's tune, his every action driven by the insidious desires that plagued his soul. As Urgil witnessed the transformation of his companion, a tremor of fear and uncertainty coursed through his veins. He fought against the alluring promises, desperately clinging to the remnants of his once noble intentions. But the struggle was real, and with each passing moment, the crystal's influence threatened to engulf him completely. The line between righteousness and the seductive allure of power grew increasingly blurred. Urgil wrestled with his inner demons, battling against the rising tide of temptation. He knew that yielding to the crystal's siren song would mean sacrificing his integrity, forsaking everything he had fought for. Yet, the allure of dominion, of wielding unimaginable might, whispered sweet promises in his ear, eroding his resolve bit by bit. In the midst of the chaotic battle, Thorgon and Urgil stood on the precipice, their destinies hanging in the balance. The crystal's corruption continued to seep into their souls, threatening to consume them entirely. Their once unbreakable bond now strained under the weight of their divergent paths, as Urgil fought desperately to resist the darkness that threatened to claim him. At the same time, Thorgon willingly embraced its sinister embrace. As the battle raged on, Eve's resilience and determination knew no bounds. With her hammer in hand, she swung it with incredible precision and force, each strike resonating with a raw power that reverberated through the air. The dwarves, bolstered by the crystal's energy, unleashed their war machines upon her, hoping to overwhelm her with their technological might. With lightning-fast reflexes, Eve dodged the onslaught of projectiles and unleashed a barrage of spells. Her mastery of the arcane arts was evident as she called upon the elements to aid her in the fight. Bolts of lightning crackled from her fingertips, striking down the incoming cannonballs and explosive projectiles, neutralizing their threat with each precise blast. The sheer intensity of her spellcasting created a mesmerizing display of power, the air around her pulsating with energy. Against the Thundercrusher, Eve summoned a swirling vortex of wind, using its force to divert the massive warhammer's trajectory. As it swung down with earth-shattering force, she leaped gracefully into the air, evading the blow with uncanny agility. With a swift counterattack, her hammer collided with the Thundercrusher, cracking its mighty frame and causing it to veer off course, its thunderous impact reduced to mere echoes. The Etherclaw, the aerial juggernaut, unleashed a storm of sky blades and sky-seeker missiles. Eve, her senses heightened, weaved through the barrage with a dancer's grace. With precise timing, she summoned protective shields, forming barriers of energy that deflected the ethereal blades and redirected the missiles harmlessly into the tempestuous sky. Then, with a fierce cry, she descended upon the Etherclaw, her hammer crushing its propellers and rendering it immobile, its once formidable presence reduced to a mere metal carcass. Even the mighty Goliath cannon, with its explosive force, was no match for Eve's unwavering resolve. As it discharged its devastating payload, she conjured a shield of energy, absorbing the impact and dispersing the explosive energy harmlessly into the air. With a determined stride, she closed in on the gargantuan weapon, her hammer shattering its barrel with a resounding crash, rendering it useless. The ironclad ballistae, with their precision and power, fired their enchanted bolts with deadly accuracy. Eve, her movements fluid and swift, deflected the projectiles with calculated strikes of her hammer. Each clash created a symphony of sparks and reverberating metallic echoes, a testament to her unmatched skill and unwavering focus. Throughout the fierce engagement, Eve's spellcasting prowess remained unmatched. She summoned bolts of lightning, crackling with raw energy, that surged through the sky, rendering the dwarven war machines ineffective in their attempts to overpower her. Each spell she cast was meticulously aimed, strategically dismantling the dwarves' defenses and dismantling their machinery. The dwarves, in spite of their crystal-fueled power, found themselves outmatched by Eve's unwavering determination and unparalleled mastery of combat. With each passing moment, their confidence waned, their efforts proving futile against her relentless assault. The island's energy barrier protected them from direct harm, but it could not shield them from the indomitable spirit and skill of the half-immortal warrior who fought against overwhelming odds. As the fierce battle between Eve and the dwarven forces raged on, a sudden shift in the atmosphere caught her attention. A blood-red spotlight pierced through the stormy sky, illuminating the island with an ominous glow. The sound of distant explosions reverberated through the air, accompanied by the unmistakable rumble of cannons firing. Eve turned her gaze towards the source of the commotion and her heart skipped a beat. Emerging from the stormy horizon was the formidable warship known as Big Bertha, its sleek silhouette slicing through the raging tempest. Corey, the notorious pirate lord, helmed the warship with a steely determination. The red light that fell upon the island served as the targeting mechanism for the mortars aboard Big Bertha. The world knew this crimson light as the infamous signal of imminent destruction. As the mortars thundered to life, the island quaked beneath the explosive impact. The barrages from Big Bertha's relentless assault sent shockwaves through the energy barrier surrounding the dwarven stronghold. The once impenetrable shield trembled and crackled, its formidable strength strained against the relentless bombardment. Eve's eyes widened as she witnessed the cracks forming within the barrier, ominous signs of its impending collapse. The combined might of her aerial onslaught and the devastating firepower from Big Bertha had shattered the dwarves' defenses. It was a turning point in the battle, a glimmer of hope amidst the storm. With renewed determination, Eve pressed forward, her attacks intensified as she saw the dwarves falter under the weight of the onslaught. She seized the opportunity, exploiting the cracks in their once impenetrable barrier, driving deeper into their ranks with every swing of her hammer and every surge of her elemental spells. The battle had evolved into a symphony of chaos, with explosions and clashes reverberating through the storm-laden air. Eve fought with a singular purpose, to dismantle the dwarves' forces and claim victory for her cause. The combined might of her unwavering resolve, the ferocity of her spells, and the devastating firepower of Big Bertha turned the tide of the conflict in her favor. As the energy barrier around the island teetered on the edge of collapse, Eve's relentless assault, bolstered by the relentless mortar fire from the warship, pushed the dwarves to their breaking point. The once lustful battle cries of the dwarves turned into desperate shouts of retreat, their confidence shattered and their forces in disarray. Amidst the chaos, Eve stood as a beacon of unwavering strength, the embodiment of a warrior's spirit. She knew that victory was within reach, but the battle was far from over. The dwarven forces on the island were thrown into a state of shock and panic as they beheld the arrival of Big Bertha, the warship of the Dark Lord. Their battle cries faltered, replaced by gasps and muttered curses. "What in the hells is that?" exclaimed one dwarf, his voice filled with disbelief. "That's the Dark Lord's ship." "We're in deep shit now," shouted another dwarf, his words tinged with fear. "They're attacking from the sea too?" "We're fucking surrounded," cried a third dwarf, his voice trembling with panic. The dwarves exchanged frantic glances, their eyes widening with a mixture of awe and terror. The sheer size and firepower of Big Bertha was beyond anything they had ever faced before. "We can't retreat now, lads. The crystal's power flows through our veins. We must stand our ground," yelled one defiant dwarf, his voice laced with determination. "But how do we fight against that monstrosity?" questioned another dwarf, his voice trembling with uncertainty. "We keep firing. We can't let them break through. Our lives depend on it," roared a third dwarf, his voice filled with a desperate resolve. Though shaken by the sudden appearance of the Dark Lord's ship, the corrupted dwarves were unwilling to back down. The power of the crystal had consumed their souls, fueling their battle lust and blinding them to the overwhelming odds stacked against them. As Big Bertha unleashed its devastating barrage upon the island, the dwarves frantically fired their war machines, their movements frenzied and their shouts filled with a desperate hope to repel the oncoming onslaught. "We won't let them take us down." "Fire at those bastards," bellowed a dwarf, his voice strained with defiance. "Reload those cannons." "Well, blast them out of the fucking sky," exclaimed another dwarf, his words punctuated by the clattering sound of ammunition being loaded. The dwarves fought on, their minds clouded by the corrupted power coursing through their veins. Their battle lust, coupled with the desperate need to protect their stronghold, propelled them forward, despite the odds. In the face of the overwhelming firepower of Big Bertha, their shouts grew more frantic, their curses more fervent, as they desperately clung to their doomed cause. "Well, bring that ship down." "No matter the cost," yelled a dwarf, his voice filled with a reckless determination. "Keep firing, you sorry lot." "Show 'em what we're made of," shouted another dwarf, his words drowned out by the thunderous explosions around them. Though the odds were stacked against them, the corrupted dwarves refused to yield. Fueled by the twisted power of the crystal and their unyielding stubbornness, they fought on with a ferocity born of madness and desperation. The clash between the dwarven forces and the might of Big Bertha raged on, the air filled with the cacophony of cannon fire, war cries, and the resounding impact of destruction. Chapter 953, End of the Long Battle. Thorgar, consumed by the corrupting power of the crystal, his voice laced with madness and malice, urged the dwarves to continue their relentless assault. "Keep firing, you sorry lot." "Well, show those Dark Lord's bastards what we're made of," he bellowed, his words dripping with venom. "Blow that fucking ship out of the sky. Give 'em hell." Thorgar shouted, his eyes filled with a twisted fervor. "Don't you give up, you worthless sacks of shit." "Well, tear through their defenses and rip that bitch apart," he roared, his voice a mix of rage and bloodlust. The dwarves, their minds tainted by the corrupting influence of the crystal, echoed Thorgar's call, their shouts filled with a deranged determination. "Destroy 'em all. No mercy. Show 'em the wrath of the crystal's power," one dwarf yelled, his voice tinged with madness. "Fuck the Dark Lord and his bitch." "Well, bring 'em down, one piece at a time," shouted another dwarf, his words fueled by an unhinged rage. Thorgar's commands reverberated through the chaotic battlefield, his voice a twisted symphony of aggression and hate. "Sink that fucking ship into the abyss. Show em the true power of the crystal," he screamed, his voice drowned out by the sounds of destruction and chaos. As the dwarves heedlessly followed Thorgar's orders, their souls corrupted and their battle lust unrestrained, their shouts grew louder, their curses more vicious. Driven by their twisted desires and blinded by the allure of power, they fought on with a reckless abandon. In their minds, there was only the burning desire to bring ruin upon the Dark Lord's ship and to see their enemies fall before them, no matter the cost. The battlefield became a frenzied cacophony of cries and curses, each dwarf fueled by a maddening hunger for destruction and dominance. The air vibrated with their shouts, blending into a symphony of chaos and malevolence. Thorgar, consumed by his lust for power and vengeance, pushed his corrupted comrades to the brink, urging them to fight with an intensity that bordered on madness. "Fight, you worthless maggots. Show those Dark Lord's bastards what we're made of. Destroy 'em all," he bellowed, his voice reverberating with a mix of triumph and derangement. In their corrupted state, the dwarves fought on, their souls tainted by the crystal's insidious influence, their shouts echoing through the storm-filled air, a chilling testament to the darkness that had consumed them. As the battle raged on, the sudden thunderous roar of the Big Bertha's torpedoes being launched sent shockwaves through the air. The warship, under the command of Pirate Lord Corey, unleashed its devastating firepower, targeting the island from beneath the waves. The dwarves, their attention fixed on the sky and the battle above, were caught off guard by the unexpected assault. Panic spread through their ranks as they realized that the Dark Lord's ship was not limited to conventional warfare alone. "What the fuck? They're attacking us from below." "Brace yourselves," shouted one dwarf, his voice filled with a mix of disbelief and alarm. "The Dark Lord's ship ain't playin' fair. They're fucking us up from every goddamn direction," cried another dwarf, his words laced with frustration. The thunderous impact of the torpedoes echoed through the island, causing tremors that shook the ground beneath their feet. The energy barrier, once a formidable shield, crackled and faltered under the onslaught of the underwater assault. "They're fucking breaking through the barrier. We're not safe here anymore," warned a dwarf, his voice tinged with fear. The dwarves, now facing a two-pronged attack from above and below, struggled to regain their composure. Their battle lust wavered for a moment as the realization of the dire situation sunk in. "We can't let 'em take us down. We fight to the bitter end." "Hold your ground," barked Thorgar, his voice betraying a hint of uncertainty. The island shook with the force of the underwater explosions, creating a chaotic symphony of destruction. The once unyielding dwarven war machines now found themselves facing a relentless assault from all sides. Amidst the chaos, Eve, hovering above the battleground, assessed the situation with a steely resolve. Despite the overwhelming odds, she remained undeterred, her grip on her hammer tightening as she prepared for the next phase of the battle. The clash of torpedoes and the crumbling of the energy barrier added a new layer of chaos to the already frenzied battlefield. The dwarves, fueled by their corrupted souls, fought on with a renewed determination, their shouts of defiance mingling with the sounds of explosions and crumbling stone. In this swirling maelstrom of destruction, Eve stood as a beacon of unwavering resolve, her hammer and spell serving as her weapons of choice against the onslaught from all directions. With each strike and spell, she pushed back against the tide, determined to protect herself and the island from annihilation. The battle raged on, the relentless assault from the Big Bertha and the dwarven war machines creating a maelstrom of destruction and chaos. The island trembled under the combined might of the underwater torpedoes and the dwarves' corrupted firepower, as Eve fought with unmatched determination to turn the tide in her favor. "Stop her. We can't let her keep tearing through our defenses," Thorgar shouted, his voice strained with desperation. The dwarves, their earlier battle lust reignited by the Dark Lord's renewed attack, rallied once more, their shouts blending with the roar of the torpedoes and the clash of steel. The island became a battleground of fire and water, with Eve at the center, fighting against the encroaching darkness and the relentless onslaught of the dwarves. As the battle reached its climax, the combined assault of Eve, the dwarves, and the Dark Lord's ship, Big Bertha, intensified. The energy barrier that had once protected the island now trembled under the relentless barrage, cracks spiderwebbing across its surface like fractured glass. Eve's hammer crashed against the barrier, each strike resonating with raw power. Bolts of lightning crackled around her, illuminating her determined expression as she channeled her energies into breaking through the weakened defense. With every blow, the cracks deepened, and the barrier's once impenetrable strength waned. From the depths of the sea, the torpedoes launched by Big Bertha continued their relentless assault, seeking to dismantle the barrier from below. Explosions erupted beneath the surface, their shockwaves reverberating through the water, threatening to shatter the fragile shield that remained. Simultaneously, the mortars fired from Big Bertha tore through the stormy sky, their crimson trails of destruction streaking toward the island. The impact of each explosive round sent shockwaves rippling through the air, adding to the chaos and further weakening the barrier's tenuous hold. With each passing moment, the energy barrier strained against the combined assault, its once radiant glow flickering with uncertainty. The dwarves, witnessing the crumbling defense, unleashed a furious onslaught, their corrupted souls now driven by desperation. Amidst the chaos and destruction, Eve pushed forward, her every move a testament to her unwavering determination. She knew that victory hung in the balance, that the barrier's demise would tip the scales in favor of the Dark Lord's forces. With each strike of her hammer and every spell she cast, she poured her energy into breaking down the barrier's final remnants. And then, with an explosive roar, the energy barrier shattered, sending a shockwave of raw energy cascading across the island. The air crackled with the release of pent-up power, the remnants of the barrier dissipating into nothingness. In the wake of the barrier's collapse, the island lay exposed, vulnerable to the forces that sought to conquer it. The dwarves, their battle lust fueled by the crystal's corruption, surged forward, their cries echoing with a newfound fervor. The Dark Lord's ship, Big Bertha, poised to unleash its full might, prepared to rain devastation upon the shattered defenses. With the energy barrier shattered and the island exposed, Eve descended upon the battlefield like a tempest unleashed. Her landing sent shockwaves through the ground, cracks forming in the earth beneath her feet. The air crackled with electricity, arcs of lightning dancing along the surface of her hammer. As she stood amidst the disarray of the dwarven forces, a moment of silence settled over the chaos. All eyes turned toward the half-immortal warrior who had single-handedly challenged their might. The dwarves, their battle lust momentarily quelled by the sheer force of her presence, stared at her with a mix of awe and trepidation. Eve's gaze swept across the dwarven ranks, her eyes ablaze with determination. The storm raged within her, her connection to the celestial energy surging through her veins. With each step she took, lightning crackled around her, illuminating the darkened sky. Thanks to Michael and Elidor, her hammer had the rune to harness the power of the lightning. And then, without uttering a word, she raised her hammer high above her head. A surge of raw energy coursed through her body, manifesting as bolts of lightning that shot forth from the hammer's head, cascading in a brilliant display of power. The lightning bolts arced across the battlefield, striking with pinpoint accuracy. Dwarves were sent flying, their bodies convulsing with the electrifying impact. The ground shook beneath the onslaught, the very air charged with the remnants of her lightning. In that moment, Eve became an embodiment of unstoppable force, her hammer a conduit of pure destruction. With every swing, the earth trembled, and the dwarves, once consumed by battle lust, now found themselves facing an adversary beyond their comprehension. The clash between Eve and the dwarves intensified, the air thick with the scent of ozone and the echoes of grunts and cries. The dwarves, once filled with arrogance and bravado, now fought with a newfound respect for their opponent. They swung their weapons with renewed determination, their blows fueled by a desperate desire to overcome the half-immortal warrior who stood before them. But Eve's lightning-infused hammer struck true, its power overwhelming. With each strike, dwarves were sent sprawling, their bodies racked with searing pain. The battlefield became a maelstrom of chaos and destruction as the clash of steel and lightning filled the air. As the battle raged on, the tide began to turn decisively in Eve's favor. With each swing of her lightning-infused hammer, she shattered the defenses of the corrupted dwarves, their armor rending under the relentless assault. Blood sprayed through the air as bodies crumpled beneath the force of her blows, their screams swallowed by the tempestuous winds. Amidst the chaos, the deafening explosions of mortar shells pierced the air. The projectiles, launched from Big Bertha, rained down upon the dwarven forces, their impact devastating. The explosions tore through ranks of corrupted warriors, leaving a trail of carnage and destruction in their wake. Limbs were torn asunder, bodies were shattered, and the battlefield was painted crimson with the fallen. Yet amidst the chaos, Eve moved with an almost supernatural grace, evading the incoming mortar shells with an instinct honed through countless battles. Her agility and lightning-quick reflexes allowed her to dance through the onslaught, avoiding the deadly explosions that surrounded her. Amidst the destruction, the dwarves fought desperately, their voices filled with rage and desperation. "Kill the bitch! Bring her down," one dwarf screamed, his voice choked with anger and pain. "We won't let her defy us." "Fight till the bitter end," another dwarf roared, his voice laden with defiance. But their cries were drowned out by the thunderous clashes of steel and the crackling of lightning. Eve's relentless assault continued, her hammer a blur of motion as she pressed forward, her resolve unyielding. The dwarves, their bodies battered and broken, fought with a ferocity born of desperation. Their attacks grew increasingly erratic, fueled by a mixture of fear, rage, and the corrupted power of the crystal. Yet, one by one, they fell before Eve's might, their once formidable war machines reduced to twisted wrecks. Amidst the chaos and the screams of the dying, Eve's voice rang out, cutting through the tumultuous storm. "You should have listened to me," she declared, her words carried by the howling winds. But the corrupted dwarves, their hearts twisted by the allure of the crystal's power, refused to yield. They fought on, their bloodlust blinding them to the futility of their cause. With every strike, Eve cleaved through their defenses, her hammer crackling with the energy of the storm. The corrupted dwarves could only watch in horror as their comrades fell, their bodies broken and lifeless. Amidst the chaos and destruction, Eve's voice echoed once more, a warning laced with sorrow. "You could have chosen a different path, but now you must face the consequences of your actions," she said, her words carrying a weight that matched the devastation around them. Amidst the chaos and carnage, Thorgar and Urgil, driven by their corrupted desires and twisted ambitions, mustered their last ounces of strength to confront Eve. Their eyes burned with a mix of madness and determination as they charged towards her, their weapons raised high. Thorgar, his face contorted with rage, swung his battle-axe with all his might, aiming to cleave Eve in two. But his attack was met with a lightning-fast parry from Eve's hammer, the clash of their weapons resonating through the air. With a swift countermove, Eve retaliated, striking Thorgar with a powerful blow to his chest. The force of the impact sent him sprawling backward, his body crashing onto the blood-soaked ground. Urgil, his body infused with the dark energy of the corrupted crystal, unleashed a flurry of strikes, his dual blades whirling through the air. But Eve, her movements fluid and precise, effortlessly evaded his attacks, her hammer becoming a blur of electrified fury. With a swift swing, she delivered a crushing blow to Urgil's side, the crack of bones audible amidst the chaos. He fell to his knees, gasping for breath, his eyes filled with a mixture of pain and disbelief. As the life force drained from their battered bodies, Thorgar and Urgil stared up at Eve, their faces contorted with a blend of defiance and resignation. "We won't surrender," Thorgar gasped, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. Urgil, his voice a mere whisper, managed to utter his final words. "The crystal power will consume you, too." With those words hanging in the air, their life force extinguished, their bodies became still. Thorgar and Urgil, once filled with the promise of power and victory, lay defeated in the presence of the indomitable half-immortal. As Eve surveyed the aftermath of the fierce battle, the battlefield was a haunting scene of devastation. The once proud island lay in ruins, scarred by the relentless conflict that had taken place. Crumbling structures and twisted metal littered the ground, a testament to the ferocity of the clash between the corrupted dwarves and Eve's unwavering determination. Her gaze settled on the tower, where the mysterious crystal lay concealed deep underground. It pulsed with malevolent energy, its corrupted aura palpable even from a distance. Every fiber of her being screamed for its destruction, knowing the chaos and corruption it had wrought. With a heavy heart, Eve steeled herself for the task ahead. She would retrieve the crystal from its hiding place beneath the tower and deliver it into the waiting hands of Mugashuku. It was a daunting responsibility, one that weighed heavily on her shoulders, but she knew it was the only way to prevent further destruction and chaos. This was a choice born out of necessity, a grim acknowledgement that sometimes risks must be taken to preserve the greater good. In the depths of her being, she felt a sense of trepidation. She understood the dangers of handing over such a potent artifact to Mugashuku, a being of unfathomable darkness. Yet, she also knew that the consequences of defying him would be catastrophic. The lives of countless beings, including those she held dear, hung in the balance. Eve's body ached with weariness as she approached the towering structure. Every step felt heavy, each movement a struggle against the fatigue that threatened to engulf her. Her breath came in ragged gasps, and her muscles screamed in protest. The once imposing armor that adorned her now bore the marks of the brutal battle. It was dented and scratched, a testament to the fierce clashes that had unfolded. Stains of blood, a macabre tapestry of her own and that of the fallen dwarves, marred its once pristine surface. Her hands, once firm and steady, trembled as she reached out to steady herself against the cold stone of the tower. Blood trickled down her brow, mingling with the sweat that coated her face. Her once lustrous hair, now matted and disheveled, clung to her skin with dampness born of exertion. Despite her exhaustion, her eyes burned with an unwavering determination. She refused to let weariness consume her, to surrender to the heaviness that threatened to pull her down. With every ounce of her being, she summoned the strength to continue, to press forward in her mission. Chapter 954, The Grand Scheme of the Previous Dark Lord, New AHSS chapter is out. Please read it and let me know your thoughts in the comments. Dagon materialized within the treacherous depths of hell, a place shrouded in perpetual darkness. The hall he found himself in seemed to stretch endlessly, its walls adorned with ominous symbols and macabre motifs. The air was thick with an eerie stillness, broken only by faint whispers that seemed to echo from unseen corners. Drawing upon his formidable power, Dagon conjured forth a black dagger, its blade gleaming with a malevolent aura. With steady determination, he pressed the blade against his palm, allowing a deep crimson stream of blood to flow freely. The scarlet droplets cascaded onto the waiting skull, etched intricately upon a towering pillar before him. As the life essence merged with the skull's etchings, an ethereal transformation took place. Gradually, the nebulous smoke took on the form of Michael, but not as Dagon had last seen him. This manifestation of Michael appeared more mature and seasoned, with a mane of long, flowing hair cascading down his broad shoulders. A thick beard adorned his chiseled jawline, adding an air of wisdom and authority to his countenance. The apparition of Michael hovered above the skull, his form ethereal and untethered. His eyes, filled with an otherworldly light, locked with Dagon's, revealing a profound understanding of the realms and his vast knowledge. It was as if the embodiment of Michael had transcended mortal limitations, becoming a paragon of supernatural prowess. In this unhallowed place, where shadows danced and secrets whispered in the darkness, Dagon had successfully summoned the essence of Michael in a form that transcended time and physical constraints. I must confess, I never fathomed that the events foretold by you 5 millennia ago would unfold in such a manner today. I have encountered your younger self, the harbinger of our grand design. Dagon spoke with a mix of awe and reverence, his gaze locked upon the elder manifestation of Michael, the enigmatic previous Dark Lord who reset the entire universe. As Dagon uttered these words, the ancient chamber seemed to hold its breath, hanging on to every syllable that resonated in the air. Shadows danced upon the walls, as if mirroring the weighty significance of their conversation. The atmosphere crackled with an undercurrent of destiny, the culmination of a meticulously crafted plan set in motion eons ago. The older Michael stood before Dagon, his presence commanding attention and respect. His eyes, filled with a timeless wisdom and ancient knowledge, pierced through the fabric of reality itself. The weight of his past and future converged in this moment, as if the essence of the ages coalesced within his being. A subtle, enigmatic smile curled upon the lips of the elder Michael, his countenance revealing a profound sense of comprehension and confidence. Excellent. Knowing my own nature, I will present you with the severed head of the orc. Take it to the very spot where we first clashed with the formidable Andor. His voice resonated with the echoes of ages past, carrying the weight of countless eons. The previous Dark Lord spoke these words, his voice imbued with the authority and wisdom of one who had traversed the corridors of time. Michael, there is one thing that has weighed upon my mind for 5 millennia. With your immense power and my formidable army, we could have eventually conquered the realm of gods. Yet, you made the decision to reset the universe and start anew. Why? Dagon's voice carried a mix of curiosity, anticipation, and a hint of long-awaited satisfaction. For countless years, he had yearned for this moment to activate the artifact bestowed upon him by the previous Dark Lord and pose this burning question. You already know the answer, Dagon. Without Gaia by my side, there is no purpose in seeking conquest or ruling over the vast expanse of the universe. Michael's voice carried a profound sorrow, reflected in the depths of his weary eyes. The weight of loss and longing permeated his words, a testament to the love he had shared with his wife, Gaia. The curse that had befallen her, slowly consuming her existence until her inevitable demise, had driven him to make the ultimate sacrifice, to reset the very fabric of reality. In his eyes, the pursuit of power and dominion had lost all meaning in the absence of his beloved. Dagon's laughter echoed through the chamber, a bitter and mocking sound. So, you reset the entire universe for one girl? All those worlds, all those lives, all for the sake of your love? His voice dripped with sarcasm, unable to comprehend the depths of Michael's sacrifice. You truly are a sentimental fool, sacrificing everything for a fleeting romance. She was not my girlfriend, Dagon. She was my wife. Michael's voice carried a mix of sorrow and determination. The weight of his words hung in the air, revealing the depth of his connection to Gaia. A wife is not just a companion or a partner, Dagon, Michael said, his voice carrying a touch of wisdom. She is the foundation of a man's soul, the light that illuminates his path, and the source of his strength in times of darkness. In her love and presence, a man finds solace, purpose, and the courage to face any challenge. A wife is a reflection of his deepest desires, a confidant in his deepest fears, and the embodiment of unwavering support. With her by his side, a man becomes more than himself, for she completes him in ways no other can. So, do not underestimate the power and significance of a wife, for she is the beating heart of a man's existence. Despite Michael's earnest words, Dagon remained obstinate in his pursuit of power. To him, power held greater significance than any emotional connection or companionship. The concept of love and the value of a wife were lost on him, for his heart was consumed by ambition and the thirst for supremacy. The previous Dark Lord recognized this inherent quality in Dagon, his propensity for deception and manipulation, and that was precisely why he struck a clandestine deal with him. While Dagon was often labeled as the devil and deceiver, Michael knew that compared to many gods in the realm of gods, Dagon possessed a certain level of cunning and resourcefulness that made him a formidable ally. It was this mutual understanding of their shared ambitions that forged an unlikely partnership between them, where each sought to exploit the other's strengths for their own gain. Dagon paced back and forth, his expression filled with concern and skepticism. He couldn't comprehend why the previous Dark Lord would opt for such a perilous plan, one that carried the weight of potential destruction. With a furrowed brow, he finally voiced his apprehension. Michael, this plan of yours is beyond risky. A single mistake could cost your current self's life, and with it, all that we have strived for. Why would you willingly put yourself in such jeopardy? Dagon questioned, his voice tinged with a mix of caution and confusion. The previous Dark Lord's aged eyes met Dagon's gaze, revealing a mixture of determination and resignation. Deep lines etched his weathered face, telling the story of a man burdened by the weight of his choices. Dagon, the stakes are high. I won't deny that. But sometimes, great risks must be taken for even greater rewards, he replied, his voice carrying the weight of experience. I had witnessed countless futures, Dagon, before I made the decision to reset the universe, Michael revealed, his voice carrying the weight of his experiences. In all those possibilities, this is the only timeline where Gaia survives, and we attain what we have always longed for. Dagon came to a sudden halt, his gaze fixed upon the previous Dark Lord. The air crackled with a mixture of intrigue and amusement as he locked eyes with his enigmatic companion. Very well, Michael. I shall place my trust in your vision. Now, pray tell me the next phase of this intricate plan, O God of Darkness, Dagon inquired, his voice laced with a subtle hint of amusement. Once you arrive at the designated battleground, secure the severed head of the orc upon the pedestal, Michael began, his voice carrying a weight of authority. By doing so, the runes I meticulously inscribed will be activated. This will temporarily disrupt the barrier that encases the mortal realm, creating a narrow passage for you and a select portion of your forces to infiltrate their sacred domain. Michael met Dagon's gaze with a steady intensity, his eyes emanating ancient wisdom. When you reach the realm of gods, go to my temple, where you find the graces of the fallen gods. Release the graces, the previous Dark Lord elucidated, revealing the next crucial step of their audacious plan. The revelation struck Dagon with an unexpected force, causing him to stagger under the weight of the revelation momentarily. The realization that Michael had kept the graces of the fallen gods hidden within his sanctuary sent shockwaves through Dagon's being. His mind raced, struggling to comprehend the implications of such a revelation. How had Michael acquired and preserved such divine remnants? What role did these graces play in the grand tapestry of their undertaking? Dagon's brows furrowed, his face etched with disbelief as the weight of Michael's admission settled upon him. The magnitude of what he had just learned sent shockwaves through his being, reverberating with a mix of awe and astonishment. The very notion that Michael had succeeded in capturing the graces of the fallen gods defied the bounds of comprehension. His eyes widened, mirroring the depths of his astonishment, as he struggled to find words to articulate his incredulity. The air hung heavy with the weight of the revelation, a palpable sense of wonder permeating the space between them. What the fuck, Michael? You actually managed to capture the graces? Dagon's voice carried a tinge of disbelief and a touch of anger. And now you want to release them? Are you out of your goddamn mind? If those graces make it to the fallen gods, they'll regain their fucking powers in the mortal realm. The damn barrier won't stop them from reaching their mortal bodies and turning them into gods. Undeterred by Dagon's shock and the animosity that flickered in his eyes at the mention of the graces, Michael pressed on. His voice carried an unwavering conviction. Listen to me, Dagon. The awakening of the graces is crucial. It is the catalyst needed to propel my current self out of his goddamn comfort zone and face the Sky Hall. He must confront the reality of the gods' threat, eradicate the formidable 8 clans, and prepare for the ultimate battle against the divine forces. Michael's tone grew somber, echoing with a sense of urgency. As he spoke, a darkening aura enveloped their surroundings, the air crackling with ominous energy. Thunder rumbled in the distance, underscoring the gravity of their conversation. The gods must be confronted, Dagon, Michael continued, his voice steady but laced with an undeniable edge. They hold immense power, and my current self must understand the magnitude of the challenge he faces. Only then can he rise to the level of godhood we envision. It is a goddamn necessity. Michael's words hung in the air, the weight of their significance palpable. The darkened hall seemed to vibrate with an intensity that matched the thunderous rumblings outside, as if the very fabric of reality acknowledged the magnitude of their discussion. But don't you fucking forget, Dagon, Michael's voice turned deadly cold, his eyes gleaming with murderous intent. I have a score to settle. You must uncover the origin of the goddamn curse they inflicted upon Gaia. If I were in your goddamn shoes, I'd start by interrogating one of Archer Crook's fucking disciples. Archer Crook, one of the founding members of Maze Roth, stood at the forefront of Michael's list of targets. Alongside Ingrid Stenham, Chinjo, and Kargan Pavlovich, they were the insufferable quartet who had waged war against the previous Dark Lord 5,000 goddamn years ago. As Dagon stood before the elder Michael, a flicker of unease crossed his face. Deep within the depths of his being, the raging hell flames seethed with eternal hatred for the one who wielded the dark flames. Yet, to Dagon's surprise, the infernal flames remained eerily calm throughout their conversation. Despite the overwhelming animosity pulsating within him, the hell flames, usually wild and untamed, seemed to listen intently to Dagon's every word. They did not lash out in a fury or attempt to consume their host. Instead, they glowed with a dim, subdued intensity, their fiery hues casting an otherworldly glow upon Dagon's features. It was as if the hell flames recognized the significance of this encounter, the weight of the ancient being before them. The flames, in their primal wisdom, understood that this was not a moment for recklessness or blind aggression. They bided their time, observing with a silent, smoldering presence. While the flames yearned to incinerate the dark flames and eradicate their opposing essence, they recognized the delicate balance that existed in this pivotal moment. They were patient, waiting for the opportune moment to exact their vengeance, knowing that the culmination of their fiery hatred would come in due time. Dagon's voice dripped with venomous fury as he confronted the elder Michael. His eyes blazed with an intensity that seemed to draw upon the very essence of the hell flames burning within him. "And I hope your current self will keep the word you gave me all those years ago, Michael," Dagon spat, his words laced with hatred that resonated through the dark hall. His form seemed to grow taller, a towering presence emanating power and malice. The air crackled with an electric charge, mirroring the intensity of his wrath. The flames within Dagon surged, their fiery tendrils licking the air around him, casting an eerie glow upon his contorted features. Shadows danced menacingly, amplifying the dramatic atmosphere that enveloped them. "Wulfric's soul is mine." Dagon's voice thundered, echoing through the depths of the pit. His rage reverberating like a tempestuous storm, shaking the very foundation of the hall. The sheer force of his words seemed to send tremors through the air, a warning of the ferocity that lay within him. In that moment, Dagon appeared almost otherworldly, a being consumed by his own wrath, driven by a thirst for vengeance that knew no bounds. His power radiated with an undeniable force, his very presence commanding attention and evoking a mix of awe and fear. Chapter 955, The Hardest Timeline, new AHSS chapter is out. Please read it and let me know your thoughts in the comments. As Michael made his triumphant return to Dagon's castle, the air crackled with tension in the throne hall. Dagon sat upon his grand throne, an embodiment of darkness and power, his piercing gaze surveying the scene before him. With an air of nonchalance, he rested his head upon his hand, seemingly unfazed by the impending confrontation. Without a moment's hesitation, Michael hurled the severed head of the fearsome orc directly into Dagon's lap, the gruesome trophy landing with a sickening thud. The act was a bold display of defiance, a statement that Michael had fulfilled his end of the bargain and expected nothing less in return. With an unwavering gaze, Michael stood tall, his voice cutting through the heavy silence. "I held up my end of the bargain. Now, it is time for you to honor your part. Return Nightmare's soul to us." Buzz, standing by Michael's side, trembled at the audacity and fearlessness displayed by the enigmatic human. Though a creature of the realm of hell, even he felt a pang of unease in the presence of Dagon. He contemplated making a swift exit, but to his surprise, Dagon remained eerily composed, an enigmatic smile playing upon his lips. Dagon's voice, smooth as silk and laced with an underlying darkness, filled the throne hall. "Ah, Michael, you do have a way with theatrics," Buzz marveled at the unfolding scene, realizing that Michael possessed a hidden strength that surpassed his initial assumptions. The power dynamics of the encounter were shifting, and he found himself unable to tear his gaze away from the exchange between these formidable beings. "Isn't it really funny that you made a deal with the devil?" Dagon amused. A smug grin played upon Dagon's lips as he observed the reaction from Michael, his brows furrowing in a mixture of annoyance and suspicion. The devilish ruler of hell found great amusement in the situation, reveling in the irony of making a deal with the very embodiment of darkness. Before tensions could escalate further, Gaia, fueled by her own righteous anger, stepped forward, ready to demand the return of Nightmare's soul. However, Michael's firm grip on her hand held her back, a silent reminder of the precarious nature of their situation. Though his desire burned within him, Michael understood the delicate balance they treaded. To challenge Dagon now would be to invite calamity upon themselves. Yet, a silent promise formed in his mind, a vow to bring hell to Dagon's doorstep if ever the need arose. However, to Michael's surprise, Dagon did not retract his promise. With a mere snap of his fingers, the entire castle quaked, its very foundations trembling beneath their feet. Gaia's fury flared at the insect's taunting words, her eyes narrowing as she locked her gaze on Buzz. "I will tear your limbs apart, insect," Gaia growled, her tone laced with a lethal promise. With utmost care, Michael cradled Gaia's injured hand in his own, his touch gentle yet firm. Retrieving a vial of healing potion from his space ring, he poured its soothing contents over the wound, allowing its restorative magic to take effect. As he tended to her, a profound change occurred in the sky above. The once eerie crimson hue of the hellish realm shifted to a foreboding black, casting an unsettling pall over the surroundings. Buzz's frantic gaze darted about, his fear mounting as the atmosphere transformed before his eyes. Thunder resounded with an ominous rumble, and jagged streaks of black lightning sliced through the dark gray clouds above. The disconcerting sight intensified, shrouding the area in an eerie darkness that seemed to pulsate with overwhelming power. Amidst this unsettling ambience, the ethereal form of the previous Dark Lord materialized before Michael, his presence stunning everyone in their tracks. His spectral figure exuded a palpable aura of ancient wisdom and indomitable power, as if the very fabric of the realm acknowledged his arrival. Buzz's insect body quivered with fear as he beheld the overwhelming power emanating from the ethereal form of the previous Dark Lord. His bulbous eyes widened in terror, the fear gripping his heart so tight that it felt as if his wings would fail him. Trembling legs threatened to give way beneath him, but he mustered every ounce of courage to stay rooted in place. The sheer magnitude of the Dark Lord's presence seemed to dwarf Buzz's own existence, and the weight of that realization sent a shiver down his spine. It was as if the very essence of darkness and might had coalesced into a formidable entity standing before him, and the depths of Buzz's soul quivered in response to its profound power. His wings twitched involuntarily, his breath caught in his throat, and he could only pray that he would not be the target of this being's attention. In that moment, Buzz felt the insignificance of his comical bravado and realized the true terror that lay within the presence of one who had mastered the forces of darkness. As the previous Dark Lord fixed his gaze upon Gaia, a tender mixture of love, sadness, and joy flickered in his ethereal eyes. His gaze held a depth of emotion that transcended time itself, for he saw before him the very essence of his beloved Gaia, the woman he cherished with every fiber of his being. Though her appearance mirrored that of his current self's Gaia, he knew the weight of her destiny, the curse that plagued her existence in his timeline. In that fleeting moment, the previous Dark Lord's heart swelled with love, his sadness stemming from the knowledge of what awaited her. Yet, intertwined with his sorrow was a profound joy, a bittersweet celebration of this unexpected encounter. With the aid of the system, I have witnessed countless timelines, and in each one, I have observed that the only timeline in which Gaia survives is the very timeline you currently reside in. The weight of his words hung in the air, carrying the weight of immense grief and the burden of a fate that had been carefully navigated. The previous Dark Lord's eyes held a mixture of determination and regret as he sought to convey the complexity of his choices to his current self. Any alterations made to this very timeline would result in the loss of the love of your life, Gaia, forever. The system has its own adversaries, powerful enemies even I, at the height of my power, struggled to confront. To safeguard you and the system, I deliberately weakened its capabilities, ensuring the Omegas would be unable to trace its location or your existence. His words echoed with a sense of urgency, emphasizing the dire consequences that tampering with the delicate balance of the timeline could bring. The previous Dark Lord's eyes bore a mixture of wisdom and a deep understanding of the risks involved as he sought to impress upon Michael the gravity of their situation. I understand your desire for answers, Michael, but the entire point of resetting the universe was to give you a different life, separate from mine, the previous Dark Lord explained, his voice tinged with a hint of melancholy. As beings like us, we are taught to maintain emotional control in all circumstances. However, witnessing the deaths of countless loved ones and the painful task of burying their remains will gradually erode your very soul. His words conveyed the weight of the burden he had carried, understanding the toll it took on his own heart. The previous Dark Lord's eyes held a mix of empathy and the wisdom gained from his own experiences, recognizing the inner struggles Michael would face along his journey. Even when my Gaia was cursed, she tried to retain her spirited nature, her snarky remarks aimed at making me laugh. The previous Dark Lord's voice carried a heavy sadness. But with every attempt, she would falter and collapse, writhing in pain. In those moments, no amount of victories or the grandeur of ruling the universe held any meaning, Michael. It was an empty existence, overshadowed by the agony she endured. The weight of his words conveyed the deep sorrow and helplessness that came with witnessing his beloved suffer. Despite all the power and control he held, the pain of seeing Gaia in such a state overshadowed any sense of accomplishment or fulfillment. It was a testament to the depth of their connection and the profound impact her suffering had on him. The current Michael's eyes shimmered with a mixture of sadness and determination, transforming into a steely resolve. A confident smile curved his lips, radiating an air of unyielding determination. "The tragedy that befell your Gaia will not be in vain," he declared, his voice resonating with unwavering conviction. Chapter 956, Rest in Peace Michael, new AHSS chapter is out. Please read it and let me know your thoughts in the comments. As the confident words of the current Michael resounded in the chamber, the previous Dark Lord felt a surge of pride wash over him. He had orchestrated events, sacrificed his own existence, and shaped the very fabric of the universe to pave the way for this moment. The conviction and determination exuded by his successor validated his choices and gave him solace in the knowledge that his sacrifices were not in vain. With a solemn yet satisfied smile, the previous Dark Lord addressed the current Michael. "Everything I sacrificed has led us to this moment, Michael. I made many mistakes, but giving ourselves a second chance was not one." The current Michael nodded, acknowledging the weight of his previous self's words. However, before he could respond, the previous Dark Lord continued with a grave expression. "Now, listen carefully, Michael. As you leave this realm, I want you to entrust Nightmare's soul to Buzz," the previous Dark Lord instructed, his voice tinged with a sense of urgency. "He may seem cowardly and foolish, but he possesses an innate power that will prove invaluable to you in the future. Trust him, for he will play a significant role in your journey." "This is not an altercation of the timeline but my advice to you." Michael regarded the previous Dark Lord with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. However, a flash of doubt crossed his face as he considered entrusting Nightmare's soul to someone like Buzz. "But Buzz, he is a coward. How can I trust him with something so important?" Michael questioned, his voice tinged with skepticism. The previous Dark Lord's eyes glinted with a hint of amusement as he responded, "But you see, Michael, cowards have the potential to surprise us. Their fear can drive them to acts of unexpected bravery. Loyalty, too, can be found even in the most unlikely of souls." Curiosity piqued, Michael leaned in closer, awaiting the wisdom his previous self had to offer. Cowards understand the value of loyalty better than most. When pushed to their limits, they can rise above their fears and show unwavering allegiance, the previous Dark Lord explained, a flicker of intensity in his eyes. "Do not underestimate Buzz. In his own comical way, he may prove to be a steadfast companion, willing to go to great lengths to protect what he holds dear." Michael pondered the words of the previous Dark Lord, weighing the risks and rewards. After a moment of reflection, he nodded, accepting the truth in his predecessor's words. As the weight of their conversation settled upon them, the previous Dark Lord gazed at Michael with a mixture of pride and sadness. Gaia, still reeling from the emotional farewell with the previous Dark Lord, turned her attention to the floating ball of light beside her. It was Nightmare's soul, a delicate and powerful essence that held a part of their dear friend within it. A sense of responsibility washed over her, urging her to ensure its safekeeping. Curiosity tinged with confusion filled Buzz's eyes as he observed Michael and Gaia, waiting for an explanation. Michael, realizing the weight of the task at hand, looked at Buzz with a determined gaze, his voice filled with purpose. Gaia stood in complete disbelief upon hearing Michael's request to entrust Nightmare's soul to Buzz, a mosquito who often portrayed himself as a fearless warrior despite his cowardly nature. However, deep down, Gaia understood that if Michael had chosen Buzz for this crucial task, there must be a valid reason behind it. Buzz, we need your help. This soul, Michael gestured towards the radiant orb, belongs to Nightmare. We entrust you with its safekeeping until we return to the realm of hell. Keep it with you, protect it, and ensure its preservation until we can bring it back to our world. Buzz's compound eyes widened even further as Michael's request sank in. He glanced at the radiant orb, then back at Michael, desperately searching for a way out of this responsibility. His wings buzzed nervously as he began to stammer and mumble, trying to come up with excuses. Michael, I'd love to help, really, I would, Buzz started, his voice shaky. But, you see, I have this, important mission to, rid the realm of hell of pesky fleas. Yes, fleas. They're terrorizing the underworld, and only a fearless warrior like me can defeat them. Meanwhile, Gaia, shocked and concerned about entrusting Nightmare's soul to Buzz, couldn't contain her worries any longer. She pulled Michael to the side, her voice filled with apprehension. Michael, are you sure about this? I mean, Buzz, he's not exactly the most reliable choice for such an important task. Are we really putting the fate of Nightmare's soul in his hands? Michael's expression remained serious as he met Gaia's concerned gaze. I understand your reservations, Gaia, but believe me, this is the best way. Before Michael faded away, he advised me to entrust Nightmare's soul with Buzz. It may seem unconventional, but we have to trust him. Gaia furrowed her brows, contemplating Michael's words. She knew that the previous Dark Lord had unrivaled knowledge and foresight. If he had specifically mentioned Buzz, there must have been a reason behind it. But Michael, Gaia pressed, her voice filled with lingering doubt, Buzz is a coward. How can we expect him to protect something so precious? It just doesn't add up. Michael sighed, understanding Gaia's concerns. I know it seems counterintuitive, but Michael's words emphasized that sometimes courage hides behind a facade of fear. Without a flicker of remorse or pity, Michael calmly responded to Saber's inquiry about Quintus and the missing armor pieces. His gaze remained steady and unwavering as he addressed his subordinate. Regrettably, I was unable to retrieve Quintus or the pieces of my armor. Have you gathered any information regarding his whereabouts and the status of the armor pieces? Michael's voice held a tone of detached curiosity. Saber, the elder vampire, met Michael's gaze and relayed the disheartening news. My lord, it appears that Quintus has aligned himself with the Skyhall's execution team. With their assistance, he has managed to integrate the two armor pieces into his own armor. He subsequently led an assault against the armies of Giselle and Maven. We were unable to intervene due to the overwhelming presence of the Skyhall fleet. Engaging them would have resulted in significant casualties among our forces, so the rat has come out of its hole and joined the Skyhall. A sinister smile crept across Michael's face as he absorbed the revelation of Quintus' alliance with the Skyhall. It was as if a rat had finally emerged from its hiding place, only to align itself with the very entity that sought to oppose him. The news stirred a mix of emotions within him, a concoction of triumph and excitement. Thoughts raced through Michael's mind, each one a thread in the tapestry of his intricate plans. He felt a surge of confidence, a sense of being back in control, and the looming presence of the Sky Hall no longer held sway over his determination. His status as a half-celestial, a being of immense power, bolstered his assurance and emboldened his resolve. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, Michael stood at the pinnacle of his game. The challenges that lay before him no longer held the same fear they once did. He knew that his every action would be strategic and calculated, guided by his unwavering conviction and his unwavering commitment to his ultimate goal. The Sky Hall may have thought they had gained an advantage, but little did they know that they had only provoked the wrath of a half-celestial who would stop at nothing to reclaim what was rightfully his. The devilish grin on Michael's face hinted at the darkness that resided within him, a force that had been dormant for far too long. The time for vengeance and retribution was drawing near, and Michael was prepared to seize the opportunity with unwavering determination. The rat had emerged from its hole, unaware of the predator lurking in the shadows, ready to strike at the opportune moment. You're tuning into the Dreamy Love Stories YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.